sound. Communication breakdown. Yeah, we probably should practice around that. I think we'll go.
All right, so just so you guys know what's happening, I'm going to play a 1-minute intro track, and then we'll start talking.
Finally, I can hear somebody.
Okay. I was like, why is it starting again?
Hot
Is Joe
damn.
is Joe here?
Yeah, Joe's here.
Oh, okay.
I guess we should go around the room and introduce ourselves. My name is Rob. I am one of the co-chairs of the For We Are Many podcast.
Else's faces. I just
And
see.
you just see your face. You should see all of our faces.
Yeah, I see all of our faces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
I'm
this is
also
like
the White Panther Party
this is
Minister of
really
Education, and then
frustrating.
Kara, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm Kara Storm. I go by both names. I'm new to the FWAM side of things and hoping to help drop the beat, so to speak. I will say
Yeah.
I'm a lumpen proletarian. What's it? Celtic and English lassie living in England, and coming on here is sort of me getting to be able to um, engage with the bringing great comrades to light as we're going to be doing here in our grand conversation with Che and Joe, and like being able to help expand and develop the podcast.
Che, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, most definitely. First of all, Attica is all of us. That's always been my cliche, and I'm an Attica brother. Uh, I did 15 years in prison, and I've been struggling, man, ever since I was 17. I'm 77. So I'm still struggling, and hopefully we get things going.
All right. Rob, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Where'd Joe go?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Rob Rich. Been a member of UPM for, I don't know, was it over 2 years now, I think? It's been a while. My activism, as it wasn't in Attica, it did start in prison, though, in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Just
Right on.
got more radicalized as I got out, as I had gained more of a political spectrum. And from there, started organizing with different organizations. Really, just one before I joined UPM, and after that, it's been a journey of trying to get political consciousness back into the prison system while I'm out here, the best way or any way we can.
Right
So that's a
on.
little bit
Right
about
on.
my background.
Right on.
All power.
All power. That's right.
Who else is in here? Shanti, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Y'all hear me?
Hell yeah.
Okay, bet. Yeah, my name is Ashanti Mae Douglas. I'm 19 years old. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, which is on Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi lands. I've been with the UPM officially, I would say, since mid to late June. Um, it's been an absolute blast. I would say I've been pretty radical all my life. I was born a year and a half after um, Bush Jr.'s annihilation um, of West Asia. So I've grew up in the social dynamics of everything, and my maternal great grandfather is New African, Choctaw, and Irish, and he was very much a revolutionary spirit, which was one of the influences for me into getting into actual revolutionary work to begin with. I joined the New African Independence Movement last year in January, and officially in November, I became a official member of the Chicago chapter of the New York Young Lords, which I am on their education committee. I am also for the UPM Secretary of Education in tandem with the steering committee. So since January of last year, it's been a wide with a lot of the comrades and learning, political education and all of that stuff, since I'm very, very education heavy. So I'm a teacher by nature, and I feel it's really, really crucial for that education aspect to really carry to the young people right now, since I'm also 19, to African youth, to Chicano youth, to Boricua youth, to Irish youth, and other downtrodden children and youth across the world. And I'm actually in the process of creating a liberation school for children and youth on my own, street oppressed youth insurrectionists, which will be a mass democratic political education school for specifically colonized, oppressed, and disenfranchised babies, children, and youth. So that's only a tidbit of what I do. And yeah, all power.
Wonderful.
All power. I'm not sure where Joe went. Zen seems to be having issues staying in the room.
Um, I will say, with what the prison lad said, there are two places that are the most radicalizing places you can go in the first world, and that's prison or homelessness, and they're quite tied to the hip. I've fortunately managed to dodge prison like the little cockroach I am, but I have not managed to dodge the streets. In the 8 years of me being a Marxist, I've actually been homeless twice. Um, I was a shit Marxist by the first time I was going homeless. I was a pretty good Marxist by the end of the second time. The biggest wake up call and biggest teaching experience I've ever had in my life. And I can see how prison would be even bigger in that regards, because class tensions are at the fucking high.
All right. Um, so I guess the first thing that I wanted to discuss today, and I mean, I'll let one of you go first by all means, but I wanted to discuss Aaron Bushnell. We haven't done one of these streams in a long time, so therefore we haven't really said all that much about Palestine, and it's way too important of a topic to not talk about. That being said, we're not going to go super in depth to it tonight because we're going to put together a panel specifically talking about Palestine. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But I don't think it would be right to not talk about it first and foremost in our first stream in over a year.
Okay, so a big thing. Was it adventurism? Absolutely. Act of desperation and all that. Was it revolutionary? Yes. Like we as Marxists, we push against this kind of stuff in our activities because there's more useful work that we can be doing. And this is the thing with Bushnell. Bushnell would have made a fucking great revolutionary. You know how much dedication it takes to fucking burn yourself? Just on one part of yourself, let alone your entire self, self emulation. Like that takes some fucking gall, the kind of gall we need. Bushnell found himself in a place where he sacrificed his life doing what he thought was right because, you know, he'd been a part of the U.S. war machine. He had to seen it firsthand, and he just wasn't taking it on Palestine, and so he made himself a symbol. I like it. It's shattering. The it was shattering the day that Bushnell had committed his self-immolation and hearing about it, seeing the video, like, oh boy, it's harrowing at the same time. It's kind of there's major point of inspiration both for his bravado for engaging in that martyrdom. At the same time, it's the show for you hear all of these sort of like up their ass kind of Marxists that tell you that there's no revolutionary potential in the first world. But I see shit like that and I'm like, if there's people willing to burn themselves, there's people willing to fight for them for each other. You know, like especially given that that was done in solidarity with a goddamn genocide.
I just want to draw attention to what Wade just said in the comments, not to mention to stand with your fist raised, speaking your message while you're burning. And
Yeah.
I just want to point out that he screamed Free Palestine until he literally collapsed.
Wow.
So fucking like it's so fucking badass on like so many fucking levels. Like
Yeah, something that I didn't realize, and when it happened for me personally, I kind of reacted in a way of just like anything we see on the news or we see on social media. Sometimes um, it's what's the word for it when it's not as impactful emotionally. You kind of like it's uh,
it's like apathetic.
yeah, and I didn't realize like how much emotion was kind of like hidden deep down inside because I kind of have like a defense. I want to give an analysis on it so quickly, and it didn't really hit me until I was downtown Chicago at a birthday event, and all the Palestinian Free Palestine protests were going on right in front of where we were at. You know, I'm walking up to them, I'm giving dabs to people with holding flags and stuff, and there are people that I was with that were on the side that kind of didn't know what was going on, and they brought up Aaron Bushnell, and they were like, "Well, I know he burned himself and." So on and so forth. And I'm trying to explain what was going on in Palestine and then a perspective of Aaron Bushnell. And I started tearing up. And it was like, I wasn't tearing up when I was talking about it on Facebook. And I wasn't tearing up on it when I was talking about it just like it generally. But like to really get in depth on a personal level and talk about it, it really hit me like at that moment, you know, well, like what happened to this human being and what he sacrificed. And something that I see as important with this subject is some people think it went in vain. You know, there's other things that could have been done that's as a Marxist, and there was something that it did do as well for me. It made me do some more research on the subject of self-immolation and things of that nature, and also I seen his friend that he was in the military with that got on the news and was talking about they were going to leave the military together. And he wanted to wait another year. And then the subject of conscious objector, I never even knew that what that was. And go look about how
Yeah.
like how impactful that was and how it could be and how it was during Vietnam and like how there's so much revolutionary potential in there. It's really eye opening and if it wasn't for that act, I probably who knows when I would ever research something like that. But that those are just my thoughts on it.
It also broke the silence of the vets. So many vets have been coming out and speaking out against these goddamn wars now because Bush now took a sacrifice. He took a very honorable sacrifice. Because, yeah, like, it's not the kind of stuff we engage in, but Rob, you were dropping the beat so well. It's like that shit was like so goddamn inspirational at the same time. It's like it made me weep. It brought tears to my eyes. At the same time, that shit was fucking inspiring. Like that kind of sacrifice, screaming "Free Palestine" at the top of your lungs.
While you're on
Couldn't
fire.
you could not manufacture that in a fucking movie studio with the best effects you've got. That shit is the most visceral shit you can whack your eyes on. Second to the fucking actual like footage we've seen out of Palestine itself.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one thing like the given analogy is like one thing to give up um, a sacrifice when you're like a millionaire and you're gonna like give up a few dollars, right? And I look at that as like how patriotic and how ultra nationalist the U.S. is, and how it's drenched in this you have to be this patriot and you go over there and basically be part of being the bullying system of the world. But to do that when you have the upper hand in the world's biggest military, to be like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself and I'm gonna go over there. Like, did you really sacrifice yourself when you went over there and you basically you're in Iraq or something and you're basically already control the majority of the country? Or when something like this that was against all odds and just to give your life like that, um shows where the solidarity of what real patriotism of like the proletariat of what liberation struggles should look like, you know. And that sacrifice right there topples any other veteran that just joined the service to serve, aka their country and whatnot. And it just it took over the table. It took that act, what he did, trumped everything that what patriotism of the U.S. looks like.
That's fair.
Annihilated it, obliterated it. It's true sacrifice in the face of all of the bullying that they've been doing. And all the vets that have been coming out have been saying that this wasn't some like holy sacrifice, that they went around like stormtroopers, bullying every country that they could get their grubby little piss stained hands on.
Chairman Jake, do you want to say anything about Aaron Bushnell or introduce yourself since you came in a little late?
Well, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm Chairman Jake of the White Panther Party. I don't know how extended this topic can get. I mean, it connects into everything really. Are you guys focused specifically on Aaron Bushnell?
At this moment,
I mean, just for this moment, yes. That's not the only thing we're talking about tonight.
Yeah. I think it's it was kind of a massive statement worldwide that an airman did that. You saw articles and videos coming out of Al Jazeera highlighting the contradictions that exist between the empire in the West and the attacks against the Middle East. And you know, the federal government's response to Aaron Bushnell's sacrifice was honestly sickening. I mean, completely downplaying the effect that action had, alluding to his mental health in all kinds of ways that for one, is inappropriate on its face. I don't think anybody who's paying attention to this issue saw that as an act of bad faith on behalf of the government, specifically like President Biden's remarks and various generals and Air Force commanders and these kinds of people. So, I mean, that's my position on it. That sacrifice has to mean something in the long term. This is an example of somebody living up to the legacy of John Brown. And I think that White Panthers should uphold that. When somebody asks us, what does it look like to put your life on the line? Well, in the most extreme sense, you can point to this. So I think that's an important thing. Now, I do want to say, I don't believe that self-immolation en masse is going to be the strategy toward liberation. It's not to say that it wasn't impactful. But if you're acting without a collective, then this is really your one of your only options. I mean, you're going to be. I mean, it's either quite literal or it's a protracted thing. where you're slowly ground down by the system piece by piece every day. So, you know, I don't think it's the strategy that the movement should adopt, but I do think that it's a powerful statement and we should not downplay it.
All power. Rob Rich, you have the floor.
You just knew I wanted to talk. Most
Well, you were
definitely.
starting to, and I cut you off to introduce Chairman Jake, so it's
Oh
only
no, I
fair.
turned. Yeah, no, I wanted to add on to that and what Jake was saying about not having a collective, and that's kind of an error I believe on the left, right? Because it's historically the right has kind of dominated uh, organizing and trying to bring people to the right. They coming out of the military and things of that nature, but I believe that there is a lot of people with more left-leaning um, ideologies and discontent with the country when they go see the things that they're a part of, when they go overseas and they watch some of the stuff that they are collectively in doing, from mass pollution to what they do to women, the stealing, the pillaging, imperialism, all this stuff, and that type of thing. And I think that we also know it has an effect on their mental health, and when they come back to the imperial core and how they're neglected by the same country that they were fighting for, and all these things and then homelessness and all these things, right? And if the left continues to neglect them, we're in error. And that's where, if you look back and um, like the Black Panthers in 1960s into the 70s, a lot of people, that joined the Black Panther Party were former people in the Vietnam War, and they were protesting. They ended up joining the Panthers when they came back home, and that's something that we need to be actively doing, because um, they it should never be a point in which someone like that does not feel welcomed, like an Aaron Bushnell feel welcome into a collective like the White Panther Party or any communist organization, should be there with open arms, because these are also the people. A lot of people who join the military are joining because their material needs are not being met. They don't have education, they don't have food, or whatever, and it's just or just they have a false notion of an ideology that was passed down from their family members. They're saying, like, this is what you're supposed to be doing, fighting for your country, and so on and so forth. And we have to be re-educating. We have to be there trying to fulfill the material needs. And that next time there's someone that is potentially an Aaron Bushnell, they won't have to do an act of desperation. They have a community to go to that actually cares about them. I could keep going.
No, it's fine.
All power.
So Che, you haven't spoken on this yet. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, it's a rude awakening. It's really a rude awakening, you know, for somebody to go to that extent, to declare or to expose what's happening in Palestine. I mean, I see that as a lot of Panthers that came out the Navy and the Army and all that and joined the Panther Party. Many of them got killed. Also, they sacrificed themselves, man, for the cause, and that's what happened with this particular individual. He sacrificed himself for the cause, and that's a hell of a way of sacrificing. But if you have to do what you have to do, then you do what you have to do, and that's the bottom line, man. We in this war, man, the people gonna die. There's some people gonna die. There's gonna people, and it happens, So I mean, I don't know. I mean, when this happened, I don't remember. This happened recently.
Yeah, this was right about the beginning of the month.
Oh, okay. Because I've been staying away from TV, so I really don't know too much what's happening with that. But
No, I understand that. Welcome back, Comrade Joe. I'm glad that you figured it out. Do you want to introduce yourself and all that?
he's
Joe,
mute. He probably mute.
you can't hear
Can't hear
me?
you.
Huh.
This is a new era. You could hear us last time, but then like couldn't see us. Fucking A.
He left and came
Is
back and
there
then
is there an application for Restream in like the App Store? Because that would make it work easier on people's devices.
there is not, as far as I am aware, but we need to check on that.
God damn.
I mean, the other way is to do it in Zoom, which Zen brought up in the chat, but when it's embedded like that, it doesn't give all the branding options. Or,
Yeah.
the chat being fed into it, where I can put the comments up like this, There is
That's it.
actually a lot going on in the comments right now.
We have to meet them where they are at as well. I mean, so like a thing I would also look at is that um so people need to understand as well that the reason why a man will end up lighting himself on fire is because there's not really many options as well out there. Like our own organizations are still growing, and like all across America, there isn't really like a good left wing option. Like everything's scattered. We're still dispersed since the fucking terrorism against the left from the last century, and that's where we need to be picking up pace real fucking fast. And discarding veterans because there isn't conscription anymore. You know what? There are a lot of fuckers. There are a bunch of middle class tosspot patriot fucking nationalists that are in the U.S. military because they want to go and fucking shoot people to protect their fucking dollar. There are a lot of people in the military like that. A lot of people in the military are also lumpen proletarian and proletarian brethren who ended up in the military out of a lack of skills and a lack of money. I, ACAB, you can't just apply it so easily here. It's not quite the same as some comfy little white fucker joining the police force so he can go terrorize the black neighborhood. A lot of these people either don't even give a shit about America or they're caught up on some stupid idea that like they're a part of something good. And a lot of those types, they learn exactly what they're getting into the moment they get there, and they are the people that crack first. And that's people we need to be reaching out to.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we have our generation, generations. Obviously, there's at least 3 generations on the screen right now. Anyway, our generations, I feel like, have largely missed the mark on reaching former military people. But think about just historical context, right? If Lenin wouldn't, well, I guess I should say if Trotsky wouldn't have been able to reach, former imperial soldiers, the Red Army wouldn't have existed, right? Or Mao's army without enlisting former members of their imperial army.
Might I
Don't
add,
have an echo.
he also managed to reach current people. In fact, many groups that were in the Red Army had split off from the imperialist fighting force, during the First World War. The same is true in China. And to be fair, they were united against the Japanese. I do want to say, a large part of this, especially when you connect to Aaron Bushnell, and keep in mind that what I mean is not necessarily what most people in this country mean when they say it, but we have to keep our troops alive because the enemy's troops are our troops, right? This country's troops, those are our troops, and I mean us as a movement. And likewise, anywhere we're fighting against as a country, the enemy's troops there, at least from the U.S. perspective, those are also our troops. So keeping these people alive, giving them something that they could. You see, even those valor crazed individuals, right? Or hell, even somebody who just wants to join the military because they want to kill people. Whatever it is, right? You know, there is a place for everybody in society, right? There's a use for every kind of person without exception. You could even think of the worst kind of people. Obviously, there's some extreme exceptions. But we have to figure out where those places are for these people. We have to have positions in the movement that allow these people to take their position, you know. When you guys have a moment, I'd like to say something because this is about current events, and it does connect into Aaron Bushnell, but it's a little bit more wider than that, and I don't want to take it over, you know.
That's okay. Comrade Shanti, do you want to say anything before we move on to the next topic? You're the only one that hasn't spoken yet.
Yes. All of Palestine has given their solidarity to him. The PFLP, the DFLP, and all the resistance fronts in Palestine and across West Asia and Arabia. And it really breaks down this geopolitical barrier between us and the average person who would be in the global south, let's say in Brazil, in Jamaica, in Puerto Rico, which is still under U.S. occupation after 125 years. Palestine, which has been under occupation since 1917, first with the British and then them and the U.S. Empire. I think with Aaron, it breaks down that barrier, and it also goes into another dimension of folks who are in the military, because a lot of people think that, you know, just because you're in the military that you're automatically an agent for the bourgeoisie, and that is not true. That is not true. That is not true. That is not true. There are many folks in the armed forces of the bourgeoisie in the U.S. empire that are for imperialism, regardless of their class status, whether they're lumber proletariat or, you know, petty bourgeois. You know, that's just the truth of that. But there is also a large portion of folks in the armed forces that are they're either there because of the fact that they're forced to, drafted in there without consent, just like we saw with the Vietnam War, and those in the armed forces because they could not afford health care. They could not afford a house. They could not afford to eat. They cannot afford anything to live. And so they feel that the military is their only source of financial income, and they have no other choice but to join. And Aaron did a lot of revolutionary work that could not be understated. He was working with the homeless. He was doing a lot of mutual aid groups on the ground. So, like, it's breaking out of that isolated barrier that we have, um, getting us out of that chauvinistic consciousness of being in the global north, being in the West. Um, you know, and like with me, I'm New African, but I'm a Westerner. And that's just the truth of that. You know, our geopolitical heritage, our geopolitical privilege, sorry, our geopolitical privilege really plays a major role in what's happening in Palestine with the famine being made possible by our tax dollars and all of that stuff. And Aaron, um, you know, was what he did was of interest? Yes and no. No, because I've said many times on my Instagram, posting every single day about what's going on, all the gory photos, videos, everything, so that we can get out of taking a break and actually seeing that we are at war here too. Um, we can run, we can hide, we can try to ignore it as long as we want to. We can ignore it, take breaks if we need to, but eventually it'll catch up to us. And Aaron felt like he had no other choice but to do what he did. And like, that has never ever happened on a massive scale before. And the fact that there was a cop that was pointing his gun at him when he was on the floor, and there was a black man with towels, shows what the U.S. empire is in a handbasket. And I don't care how well you try to hide that fact. The truth is the truth. And what we saw was the U.S. empire in a handbasket. Now, it is only adventurism in the sense of there's no leadership or mass structure in the left here in the Imperial Core. And because there's no guidance, and because there's no proper guidance, these people are resorting to literally killing themselves into thinking that that is the only solution, which is why we really have to fix it and really get ourselves together, because this is a war. That we are at war with the bourgeoisie, and Palestine is at a war with the bourgeoisie. They're at war with the U.S. empire and the settler state of Israel. Since 1948, since 1917, and for 532 years, literally coming to a head right now in this moment in time. So there's definitely need to be guidance so that these people who are actually doing revolutionary work, who may feel that, there is no other option, can be able to join the White Panther Party, be able to join the United Panther movement, be able to, join a liberation theology group if they're religious, because it's really crucial in building that united front and being able to radicalize and bring that's a section of folks in the military in our ranks who are actually doing the work like Aaron did. um he will definitely be honored. And I want to bring this up into the fact that a lot of the colonized young people who were forcibly drafted into the Vietnam War, they were bombing the villages, they were raping Vietnamese girls and women, they were torturing them, and only all of that just to be discarded of and be and have substance use disorder, be in immense poverty, have complete PTSD and other issues that the US empire will never, ever, ever be able to fix, because it is insecure, and it's insecure, brute, and vital at its most fundamental core. And that is what we have to keep in mind with Aaron, is that we have to recognize our privilege in being in the global north for once. White people, black people, brown people, red people, all of us included, and be able to fix it. Not just fix it, but to completely change it, where we can be able to get these people in our ranks so they feel like there is truly no other option. And like Jake said, self immunization um, is definitely not the strategy in mass, because once again it's only going to last for so long. But in this current moment in time, when if they feel this there's no other option, then they feel that there's no other option, which is why once again we have to build up our movement so that we can lessen the probability of Aaron's situation uh, happening more frequent.
Um, so I will say something in regards to like engaging with the military is quite a very similar situation you have with engaging with the street and engaging with the prisons. Be careful of active service petty bourgeoisie because they're in it for the empire. That's their interest. They're in it as a part of their bourgeois class interests. And so class tensions are a lot higher in those places. It's not like it's your average petty bourgeois intellectual. This is like, as Lenin said, the petty bourgeoisie is the most patriotic class. And they do make up, I think it's the petty bourgeois and the labor aristocracy make up something like 50 or 60% of the military, like a large chunk of it. And so we've got to be very careful of those fuckers because in most cases that class is our enemy. I mean, they are outright, and so like that when they come to close to our interests, out of any group of them that's going to betray us first, other than the businessmen themselves, it'll be their lackeys in the military, and like so the tensions in class are quite high in those situations. And my primary focus when engaging with the military is the same as engaging with the streets. It's primarily going to be the proletarian and lumpen proletarian elements, and those labor aristocratic and R have to real proof themselves. They're going to be a point of consideration because, like, we shouldn't be going around wiping the ass of the upper middle class to bring them to revolutionary thought. Carrot and the stick, we bring them along when they're willing to work with our shit, and if they want to break from their own bread, wonderful. If they're not, we got a very big stick to beat the living shit out of them with. Um, it's one of my favorite Lenin quotes. He didn't have the last bit on the end though, which just would have been in vogue for Lenin. He loves talking shit. But yeah, we really need to be like not necessarily of a point where we don't bother, because that would be stupid. But we do need to be sort of really operating on the basis of when they come to us, we've got to be ready to lead them along. And if they're willing to join as actual class traitors, happy MacGuffin. If not, then they can go fuck themselves, and we'll have to beat them elsewhere.
Well, mm,
Yeah, there's definitely a necessity for like finding a unity between the different stratospheres of the proletariat. Those and I think that is highlighted a lot more as automation has increased in the U.S. over time, where people are getting closer and closer to being that of the lumpen proletariat, where people are working gig jobs, working two jobs, or doing criminal activity on the side just to make ends meet. And now you're seeing that these classes, not classes, but different. Spheres of the proletariat, are teeter tottering back and forth. And this is where we got to find those happy mediums between the two to unite the masses of people in the struggle. And something that I wanted to bring up that was talked about with something that goes on with like Aaron Bushnell, the military, and just across the board, how and the youth. I wanted to bring these two things together, and what we see happening, uh, and it seems like every few months we're talking about like a shooting happening inside the schools and stuff like that. The kids, everyone, talking about the hyper alienation that's going on. People are less likely to go outside. They're less communal, things of that nature, and you see the rise of acts of causing injury or whatever, and you see that ROTC programs and other ways that the military are like pushing that into the high schools and middle schools and elementary schools for them to for the youth to not have something to gravitate towards as something that, because I believe deep down in every human there's a desire to be collective, the desire to be around other human beings, and when the only thing that's being offered, because capitalism alienates us all, is like the ROTC program. You find something that you want to belong to. And then now you got the military sitting there like, here, come to us. We'll treat you like a brother. We'll treat you like a sister. You be patriotic. You'll do something bigger. than what you see in your small town or in your in your urbanized area that is highly povertized. You know what I'm saying? So now you see that the youth gravitating towards that, and it's really brainwashing and it's grooming at it. Like it's like you're turning these kids, trying to turn them into killing machines to go attack the proletariat of another country, and that's where they find their collectiveness in, besides something that should be humane. And it's pretty disgusting, and we have to be there to combat that. And it's it's a touchy subject, and when it comes to the youth and especially in the imperial core, and how the youth have been, you know, abused in so many different cases, to how there is a disconnect between the adults and the youth, and there's no true guidance of values, no true guidance of morals, no true guidance to get the youth from developing into decent human beings, because of the system in which we're under. It teaches us to be the opposite of that. I know that's a lot, but yeah, that was on my mind when someone brought up the youth.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah, that was good.
That was good.
Chairman Jake, if you want to take us into the next topic, you said that you already had something lined up to say.
Yeah, so this isn't, I mean, you guys can discuss it if you'd like. The main, so I mean, if you just try to gauge what's going on in the world stage right now, it's not alarmist to say that we are in the most heightened period in world history. The stakes have never been higher. You know, the nuclear clock has been moved forward. If you look around the world, there's actually like 6 or 7 different potential nuclear flashpoints. Obviously, the tension between the U.S. and basically the entire Middle East is very high. The U.S. Is considering options against countries like Iran and Yemen. There is tensions between South and North Korea and the U.S. There's a fight brewing over Taiwan and China in the South China Sea. That fight would include countries like Australia, India, on and on. There's also potential flashpoint between Pakistan and India. These are 2 nuclear armed countries. China and the U.S. are nuclear armed countries. North Korea and the U.S. are nuclear armed countries. Russia and the U.S. are both nuclear armed countries. You know, and the list goes on and on. It's a very dangerous situation worldwide, and it doesn't overshadow what's going on in Palestine. I think that that's principle, because this is a non-nuclear armed. I mean, you could argue that they meet some principle of sovereignty. This is some form of a community, right? But they are lacking arms. In fact, they're lacking basically an organized military at all. They have just been corralled into essentially open-air prisons. Their whole society has been in open-air prison for decades, and they're being bombed daily, men, women, and children being blown to pieces, and we've all seen videos, right? So I just wanted to say that that is very important, and also you will have a lot of people over the next few months talking about who is the most important person, you know, in either party, and who gets to be president, and you'll have your whole election and the big old circus and shit, right? That question of who's going to be president for any person who plans on voting. Now, I'm not even going to speak on my views or the party's views on voting. I think that's well known. But if you do intend to vote, you're not actually voting for either of the candidates. You're voting for their vice president candidate, because neither of these 2 people are going to make it 4 years. They're already over the life expectancy of every U.S. citizen, or the average U.S. citizen. So you should be essentially voting for who you feel is going to be the best vice president. And the question is given this world situation, do you feel that their vice president, or hell, even those candidates, are qualified to handle a situation in which we have never been closer to a nuclear Armageddon? Now, if you feel, like I do, like many others do, that no candidate or their vice president candidate is qualified to handle that issue, then you should not vote. And that's plain and simple. Another aspect of this, and this is something that anybody who is theoretically oriented when it comes to their Marxism, something you should be paying attention to, because this is going to be a world-changing event in your lifetime as it goes into the historical dialectic. The bourgeois revolution, when they toppled the kings, that is going to come to an end within our lifetime. And I speak to people like Cara when I say that the British Empire is the last remaining monarchy in the world. And that monarchy is going to topple.
Oh, it's
When
actually
that
not the
happens,
last one. Not the last one.
well, there's like a couple, but they're like little states. They're not the monarchs everywhere else. They have like symbolic power. They're like ceremonial, whereas the queen does have some political power. In fact, can overrule your parliament, right? That's actually the only one left that has any kind of power like that. They're not long for this world. Barbados, for example, in 2022 or 2023, they have just split off from their colonial control and all that. They've set up their own system. The oppression in Barbados, we could talk about the history with that. Point is that monarchy is not long for this world, and the minor little exceptions, one of them being in Africa, the rest being essentially controlling their area but are under the nationhood of another larger power. Putting those aside, that's going to be the last one. We'll be able to finally be able to look at the world and say, okay, did the bourgeois revolution actually achieve the goals that it set out to? And we can already answer no. We know there's not going to be any fundamental change as far as like what was promised, right? However, this is something that every, like I said, theoretically minded Marxist, somebody who's focused on a historical dialectic, would like to contribute to that kind of base of writing. This is something that you should be following very closely because, like I said, in your lifetime, within the next, let's be optimistic, say 15 years, but, it could go as long as 70, 80. That is not going to be around for very much longer. So, and keeping that all in mind, right, when we look at things like Mao's contributions, right, like the Cultural Revolution, for example, the capitalist class is not. They're also, they have a cultural revolution as well, and this is the same. This is basically a motivating factor for me as to why I don't vote at all. Right, I know that they're going to push anybody into office who has any even slightly radical position. Tendency away from capitalism, that person is not going to be long in office, if at all. So I know that that's not a solution, and so you shouldn't feel that is either. But anyway, putting all that aside, the world is very tense right now, and that's not even to say the domestic issues in the U.S. We all saw recently, a few months ago, there was a dispute over the border. In fact, 25 different governors, mostly Republican governors, all signed a statement asserting the states' rights argument that Texas has put forward in relationship to the Texas border. Specifically, I believe it's Eagle Ridge, where they refused to allow immigration customs enforcement officers to enforce the border arrangement there at Eagle Ridge. Texas officials decided to send their National Guard in, their state guard rather, to essentially put razor wire up along that area, and refuse to allow ICE to come in and take it down. In fact, they put it back up when that happened. Then Florida sent in their state guard, and several other states did as well. Now that is that's very contested. In fact, that right there could serve as a flashpoint for a civil war, or at least play into a later on justification for it. So if you ask yourself, am I voting? And you have our position, you're probably not going to. But say you don't, and you decide you're going to vote. Do you think that this candidate or their vice president candidate uh, is qualified to handle ongoing civil tensions to the point where it could become a civil war on par with, at the same time handling multiple different nuclear flashpoints? I don't think anybody in this world is qualified to handle all of these issues. In fact, the only people who can handle it are the people of the world collectively. So if you want a solution to these issues, we have to turn and take responsibility and hold ourselves accountable across the world and do something about it. And that's what I have to say about that. So there's a lot there. So I just wanted to put that out there. All power, guys.
Um,
Okay.
do I have permission to ramble a bit about the monarchy? So the monarchy is kind of a weird one. Okay, so like I know America also tells the bullshit like where they'll tell you that like oh they're just symbolic, it's traditional culture and stuff, and it's like oh no, not even just in the UK. So like in 1976, the monarchy actually couped Australia. So Australia was starting to move away from the monarchy with the Labour Party, and so they couped the Australian government through the Governor General, and not just the Governor General acting on his own intuition. No, he was told by the Queen to do it directly. A lot of people know this is the CIA doing it. Yes, the CIA was involved. They didn't actually do most of the work. It was the monarchy that did it. The CIA just provided the monarchy information that they wanted, and otherwise it was the monarchy's activities. The monarchy advises not just the crown countries, but the Commonwealth, for which it's the unauthoritarian head of, or whatever the fuck that's meant to mean. It's soft power is a lot of it, their influence over the world. The UK is kind of weird. Our crises actually kind of rarely gets blamed on the monarchy. And what ends up happening is like, I mean, you get a lot of the left. The left, we fucking hate the monarchy. A lot of right wingers, though, they'll blame the government. They'll blame democracy. They'll think we need increased monarchical power. Maybe not now Charles is in because no one really fucking likes. Actually, currently the polls are up for him, but they were like dropped below 80% for the first time ever. I think they went back up to like 83% support in the country, but like it dropped to like 37% at one point. Like he's not as liked as his mum, but when his mum was around, there are a lot of people that be like, nah, just give the monarchy power. It will solve all the problems in this country. All these decades coming into power, blah, 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 all that sort of imperialist nonsense. They're the same kind of people that really like Maggie Thatcher, and I'm like, do they know the Queen and Maggie didn't get along? they hated each other. But like, so the monarchical structure is in an unusual state of power where like it still manages to maintain a lot of support from the middle and upper class, and that's what tends to keep it in power even through hard times. Lower class people really couldn't give a fuck flying shit about the monarchy, but their influence over the more finer side of UK society is at a brevity point. And my fear is that because the right have such an increased footprint in this country compared to the left, especially in the South, that they will very easily manage to twist this around into pushing dictatorship through the monarchy, or dictatorship to replace the monarchy, rather than it being a victory of bourgeois democracy in any sense.
All power. Rob, did you want to go next? I feel like you were itching to talk.
No,
But
I mean, I could always chime in, but this is to tie in. I don't know much about the monarchy, so I can't chime in much about that. But I did want to say something about what Chairman Jake was saying, and I think that there's this interconnectedness at the ballot box, right? I think there's like an interconnectedness between like liberalisms, gatekeeping, and acts of desperation. And we were talking about acts of desperation earlier, and it may be an act of desperation by a mean of just particular to a certain group or a certain issue and things of that nature. And when it goes back to this almost this like two things, like a defeatist type of idea that a lot of people have, because a lot of people still don't vote, um, and there's also this comfortability with what we know here in the imperial core, and people are normed to the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and they say, well, that's what it has to be. That's what I know. That's all we know. Anything else is delusional and things of that nature. And and I kind of just wanted to point those type of things out, and that's because I believe that people learn based off of what like Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party would always say is by participation and observation, or observation and participation.
Observation and engagement.
Yeah, true, exactly. And when we're not showing an alternative to the ballot box, then we're in error as materialists, as someone, as groups on the left who are in are about the human needs and things of that nature. We can't just give the people ideas. We actually have to participate in trying to fulfill those needs and materially. So if they don't see it and all they see on TV is the bourgeois and their what they have to say, and if Biden or Trump is in power and they tell you that because they have this power, they have that they're going to do this, that's what they're going to gravitate towards. If you're not out if the ballot box is across the street and you're not down here putting something up with food, clothing, and shelter behind it, you're failing, and they're gonna go to the ballot box because a lot of people are uh, want instant gratification. They want to make sure that whatever they just participated in fulfilled some itch that they had, that they actually did something, or it was a liberalism or act of defeat, or any things of that nature. So with that, people can't argue with you for helping them find their material needs, and that's where we have to get grounded in. People gravitated to the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, and the Young Patriots because in under the Rainbow Coalition they were trying to fight for housing, and when housing was the issue, and you're taking over a church, you're taking over housing to provide it for the people. I don't care if you're a communist, a socialist, or what. All they see is what you're showing them, and that's a house, a place where they can put their head. And that's how we beat out those acts of desperation. How we beat out those liberalisms and things of that nature. So that's what I had to say about that.
You have like these salty like fucking Marxists in the first world that do nothing. They sit on their ass, you got their nice little armchair, and they just talk shit. Where they'll be like, all these like Americans, they don't think for themselves. They all like just follow the Democrats and follow the Republicans. It's like they think for themselves. You fucking classist little fuck. Like they're just caught up with the only thing they can think about because like but I tried telling them about Marxism. Okay, they're getting screwed over by politicians all the time. They keep trying to find new politicians because they're looking for someone who has the power to do something, and then you just telling them that you have a better way. Like, maybe with your middle class friends that works really well when you want to idealistically daydream. But down here in the fucking proletariat and the lumpen proletariat, we're much more realistic about shit. Like we've been told by so many goddamn suits, we're not gonna end up thinking that just some silly like know-it-all intellectual that's coming and telling me that they know better than I do about it, fucking anything and everything they want to pull out of their ass is gonna solve a problem for anyone. No, that's another suit talking, but even funnier, it's a suit that doesn't even have any fucking power, so it's a suit you're more likely going to tell them to shut the fuck up. Like, what you do is you show people, you get out there and you do shit. What was it? The Panthers, 14 men fixing signposts, filling up fucking potholes, like 14 fucking men. And then next thing you know, there's hundreds of them. Like you can build shit up with a posse of fucking folk them. And there are actual fucking street posses that already do shit like this without having to be a revolutionary organization. So, like, I don't get the excuse that everyone has. I really don't get it. Like, I'm in the Midlands. I traveled like 100 fucking miles to Liverpool to start a Feed the People program with people I had barely know. Like, I'd met them online and I had done like an interview with one of them on their like podcast. And the next thing you know, I was on a train to Liverpool to start a Feed the People program. Like, I'm a fucking cripple and I'm traveling halfway across the fucking country to go do it. I don't see what anyone's problem. Oh, there's nothing in my area. Look around a little wider. Like, reach out. Like, I don't get the excuse other than I'm too middle class to go somewhere because it might be dangerous or like risky, or I don't know, because I like if this cripple can drag herself halfway across the fucking country, all these healthy motherfuckers sitting in their fucking towers of glass might want to step outside for a little bit and actually try and get some shit done, because it working together as comrades, it doesn't take much to get out there and change the fucking world a bit and actually enlighten people. And out in Liverpool, the first fucking day we had people coming down and talking fucking all sorts of political smack with us and fucking talking about how shit was. Cheating a little bit because Liverpool's quite a left wing place, but nevertheless, these people weren't Marxists. Like, and they were all coming out of the woodwork and talking shit on the system in a street level way, but the exact same way we would be, and it's like why we have to be so open and reciprocal and like actually meeting people where they're at and being able to speak to folk them the way we need to speak to folk them.
Che, I saw you put your hand up. I'm assuming that
Yeah, we live in very critical moments in history. And what is going to happen will be determined by two factors. One, the enemy, and two, us. We need to do more work in the community to bring more people to our side. Because if we don't have the people, we don't have nothing. That's the bottom line. If we don't have the people, we don't have nothing. So we need to get more involved. History has taught us by the Panther Party, white and black, has taught us what we need to do. So we need to do it. Now, as far as voting is concerned, I had never voted in my life since I came out of prison. And I never will vote because I don't believe in it. I believe, politics is not but money. You got, depending how much money you put in, will determine if you get the elections. And for what I see, as quiet as cat, it seems like Trump is moving up there. And I have never seen nobody in life, never in life, with so many criminal records behind him, so many charges against this bumhead. And yet he's running for president. That's ridiculous. If I had so many charges like him, I couldn't even run for counselor, let alone president.
Couldn't get a job at McDonald's with like that
Yeah,
many charges. Like,
I couldn't even get a job at McDonald's or Burger King.
it was it with the court hearing as well. It was like, oh yeah, he's guilty of all these things, but he's still allowed to.
Yeah, he got about 40 charges.
Like, don't worry though, he's
against him.
not banned
And
because he
people don't
could
see
target
this.
himself in the
People need
first
to
day.
see this. We need to bring all this material to the people. Show them, how criminal this system is. But we also have to support, we also have to show the people that we in favor, we care about them. And we do that through our work. Through our work. We do that. Because we love the people. I know I do. And I know y'all do too. That's all I got to say.
Beautifully said, Che, as always.
Yeah, that was great. So I'm just going to give my thoughts on the electoral system really quick as well, and then I'm going to move on to the next topic, which will be infrastructure. So that should be fun. Anyway, as far as voting goes, I just want to completely reiterate what pretty much everybody else here has said. The people in general are sick of being lied to by both parties, right? I mean, obviously, Kara, you've got a little more than two parties, but none of them really fucking mean anything.
The Liberal Democrats are basically just like the Conservatives' left testicle, depending on which decade it is. So it's one of them.
Yeah. Anyway, the point is that the capitalists, the ruling class, are the ones who choose the candidates before they ever even go to the ballot. So hearing like Trump supporters talking about how Biden stole the election in 2020 really grinds my gears, because the election was stolen by the people with money before a single ballot was cast. And we need to stop pretending like the entire fucking system isn't rigged. That's all I have to say about that. I'm going to keep it brief because I'll get mad. But our electoral system is a fucking farce. So I guess the next part that we'll go into is this is actually like relative to me locally. We had a bridge on I-195. Basically, it connects Providence to East Providence, Rhode Island, right? And it had been inspected in May, and it was noted that it needed repairs, but it was deemed safe. Well, when some other renovation work on the bridge went underway in December, I believe it was, they found out that the main support beams, the main steel support beams, had completely fucking rotted out. And they immediately closed the bridge, or that half of the bridge. It's technically two bridges. The eastbound bridge is the one that now, earlier this week, it was announced that eastbound bridge needs to be torn down and completely rebuilt. They don't even have a budget in place for it, but they're saying that it's going to be about 2 years to get it done. Now, keep in mind that the working class people that live in East Providence and work in Providence went from having a 20 or 30-minute commute to a 3-hour commute. 2 years is not acceptable. But I wanted to bring it up as an example of how ineffective the state is, even at its most basic task of maintaining infrastructure. And, you know, the state has been trying to point fingers at the contractors that did previous work and yada, yada, yada. And the contractors are pointing the finger at the state. And the feds got involved and did their own investigation, which is why it took 3 fucking months plus to say, oh, we have to tear this down and start over, which anybody with half a fucking functioning brain cell could have told you by looking at the support beams that are completely rusted through. Of course it's got to be rebuilt. The state ran a ferry service across the Narragansett Bay free of charge for 2 weeks, but it ran out of a state park and you couldn't take your car on the ferry. So then you're stuck with the unreliable RIPTA transportation, that's Rhode Island Public Transit Authority, which are completely unreliable, and it overwhelmed the public transit system as well, right? Like, and this is not a uniquely Rhode Island thing. I'm bringing this up as an example that's close to me, but all across the U.S. at least, I don't know what the infrastructure is like in the U.K. I'm sure that Kara's got some insight on that. But all across the U.S., we've got 100-year-old dams, right, that are falling apart. We've got bridges that are failing in damn near every state. We've got roads that are so fucking potholed that you can't drive a car over it without fucking over your fucking suspension. I mean, not to mention the complete lack of public transit or, publicly owned utilities or anything like that. So yeah, I just want to open up the floor to the rest of the comrades here to discuss infrastructure, maybe, stuff that's happening in your area, that kind of thing. I see that Rob turned on his camera. That means that he wants to talk.
No, I'm just saying that I'm available. If someone else could go first, it doesn't matter, but I'll go if somebody wants me to go first.
Che, do you want to say anything about infrastructure? Actually, hold on. There's one more thing I want to add about this Rhode Island Bridge situation before I hand it off. Right, the politicians, when they're making their public speeches about how awful this is, the only focus is the money being lost by the fucking companies. Right, it doesn't matter how much the average person is suffering. What matters to them is the lost revenue of the businesses. Now I'll pass it off.
Does landlords involved have something to do with infrastructure? I think so.
I mean,
Right.
probably. I mean, basically, the state's been painting over dead cockroaches on that bridge for like 10 years, right? I mean, fuck.
This government don't give a fuck about nobody, man. Really, that's how I see it. Sorry, I live in a house right now, rented, and there's a lot of things that needs to be fixed that the landlord is not fixing.
Same.
That's also part of infrastructure. Landlord is not willing to fix it, but the landlord will come every month, pick up their rent, and I just wonder how much interest they really have. It's the same thing with people infrastructure. They don't have no interest. If there's no money involved, fuck it. They don't care. With that, I mean, I don't know.
I could piggyback off of what Shay was just saying. And that the government, the state does not give a fuck. And that's because the priority of the state is to protect the interest of the rich class.
Exactly.
And how does the rich class, or how does the landlord remain rich? And that's by spending and doing spending on less costs as possible. So may it be on the infrastructure or in the landlord's uh, uh, field, that they're going to try to spend as less money on maintaining their rental property or keeping somebody in there paying their bills. And the same thing for the infrastructure, for that of the proletariat, and going, how they travel and how we go about getting to work or getting into the hospital or getting to school. And they're going to spend as less as possible on it. You see that in the school system. They're going to put as less into the school system as possible. So with that type of understanding, I just want to highlight something. We're in a post scarce society, right? We have enough materials. We have enough uh, resources. We have enough labor power to fix every bridge and build more right now. Or we have enough of that to go from necessarily needing like bridges that have further there for cars, and we could completely go to rail systems. We could have flying cars right now or whatever. We could go into so many. Our infrastructure can be completely different if we got rid of the profit motive and those who are in control of protecting that profit motive. And this is why it is really important to really continuously highlighting that. If the bridge is not going to be important until it starts affecting to the pockets of the rich.
Exactly.
If that bridge fell over tomorrow and 1,000 proletariat died, as long as there's enough to get to work the next day and keep the profit going for the rich class, then they don't care. Let that bridge fall. and that's what's going to continue to happen. Now, when the workers wake up and say like, no more workers, not at the expense, we need to fix these things. If they're not going to fix it, we're going to fix it ourselves, and that's what we have to do. May it be, it may start off small. That seems like a dream I'm selling. I'm not a politician. That seems like a dream that I might be selling, but these are actually things. People build the bridges. People are teaching in the schools. People are doing all these things. The houses that are being rented out, the people built those.
That's right.
Not the rich people didn't build them. They sat on their ass while everybody else did the work. Now, when we start really conceiving that how reality truly is, then we can start getting somewhere. But the small things right now count. Okay, what I mean by that is, if it takes you to carpool to work for it to cut down the cost, or for you to find other ways and not take that bridge or whatever, do that to protect yourself at the moment. But at the same time, that starts you organizing with people. That starts the people coming together, because now when you're in that carpool and you're dodging that bridge to work, you're going to start the conversations. Why are we going through this? Why is it that we have to come to such means of cutting around corners just to make means of subsistence? And the class consciousness will start to grow. That seeds are starting to be planted in the people, not to turn around and say we got to vote harder to get this bridge built. No, we got to take control of the infrastructure. We have to teach our kids. We have to take control of the school board meetings. We have to, whatever we have to do. If we have to homeschool and do the schooling ourselves in our community, that's what we have to do to make sure the jobs get done right. So
I
go ahead,
just want to
Sid.
say that the Lincoln Hospital, that was a hospital in the Bronx in New York, was taken over by Young Laws and Panthers. Why they were taken over by the Young Laws and Panthers? Because the doctors, the nurses, and bureaucrats did not care about the patients. People used to go in there and die. So we have to take it over, in order to bring to the attention of the masses what was happening, in order to bring some changes. The same thing with the churches. The churches bring all the poor people into the churches on Sundays and preach God and all that. But meanwhile, them people are starving. They're hungry. So what we have to do, we have to take over the church in order to bring services to the people. You see, once we bring services to the people, and the people start looking at us, they start admiring us, believing in us, and following us. And that's what we need, man. Those infrastructures, man. People got to do something for themselves, because if they can't allow the government or the local government, whatever, whoever the fuck is controlling it, is to excuse the vulgarity, bro. It comes with the territory. you know, they got to take it over, man, in order to bring to the attention of the people. Anything that's happening in our communities, we have to do it ourselves. We have to do it ourselves. We have to come to the community and do what we need to do, and show the people the right way to go of struggling. That's basically it. Thank you.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's the whole idea behind everything we do, right? Is taking care of the people.
Taking care of people, man. We need to do that.
Yeah. Kari, you
So
want to say something?
I've got quite a few things to say. So talking about infrastructure crises. One of the biggest infrastructure crises of our era was Grenfell Tower burning down. Fucking 72 people died. Many more were injured, and that Grenfell Tower was caused by the one form of infrastructure they do like putting money into, and that's gentrification. So rather than them So the rather than it being like the usual shit where they knock stuff down and rebuild it, which pisses me off enough as it is because they usually rebuild subpar crap. Um, they cover the tower block with cladding because the middle class don't quite like the ghastly look of brick. Um, I think brick tower blocks look nice, cheeky little bastards. But so they coated it over because loads of business people and like the upper class and the middle class, they were getting really antsy at having to look at the drab tower blocks, and so they covered them in old cladding that had already been scheduled to be banned for not being for being inflammable. And because it hadn't been banned yet, because the process was still going through, they just decided, fuck it, it's cheaper, we'll use that one. It's not banned yet. This is kind of England's approach to asbestos as well. Usually, like managers and bosses are kind of geared to tell their workers, "I don't give a shit, just do the job." Pretend the asbestos isn't there because I don't want to have to elongate my thing by 7 to 14 days, where I have to set up a tent and everything and give people the right equipment. And so, like a lot of buildings that are actually claimed to have been asbestos free are actually loaded to the fucking brim with the shit. Um, Talking about landlords as well. I'm on social housing, which is said to be nicer than your average private landlord. um, so I'm dealing with a mold infestation from 18 months of a pipe leak, and basically they after being told by professional plumbers that what they needed to do was a decamping, where they strip the walls down, remove the mold infested like in the material of the wall that's decayed, and fix that up, and they need to strip my carpets. They found every excuse that they could to drag their legs and not do it. Even sending painters the first time to paint the fucking wall while it was infested with mold, which is an obvious little tactic that landlords use to fuck you over, where they fucking they paint over the mold, knowing it's going to eventually come back. To basically, just tell you to go fuck yourself and leave you strewn by. It also spreads out the cost of dealing with the problem over a longer period of time by stalling you as much as possible. So uh, they sent two people to do mold washes on two separate times, telling neither of them any information about the actual situation. Really, they gave them the reports, but they didn't actually tell them what the job was. And like then those people got annoyed, and now they're gonna do a decamping. I should have been removed from this property months ago, and they're telling me as well that they're booking it for June. It's like they're doing everything they can to not fucking like solve the problem quick enough when they know the mold is fucking my hell. And these people will do that. They'll drag their feet at any cost because it's a finance expenditure for them. They have to provide me emergency accommodation because the housing has class 1 hazards, damp and mold. Um, and I should already be out of here. I got fibromyalgia. And I got it pretty bad for my age. Usually you get fibromyalgia as bad as I've got when you're hitting like your 40s to your 60s. So I am already pretty fucked. It's why I'm in bed right now. Comfy and cozy with my I got a standing desk now. So but the what's it? Black mold increases fibromyalgia. I might possibly have throat cancer right now. Do you want to know what black mold does to cancer cells? Causes that shit to grow rapido. And so, like, a lot of this shit's all abandonment. And we look at, like, the streets in this country, pothole messes. I should go to this again. Pothole-ridden messes that are fucking, like, absolute nightmares to drive across. And what I don't know if they're doing. Oh, they are doing this in America, aren't they? They're like literally chopping up your streets to do this, where they replace beautiful tarmac with fucking tarmac mixed with gravel. Whoever's fucking idea it was to do shit like that, I want to find them and slap them. I don't care how many decades I have to travel back in time because fuck that mess in my back. And the buses here, rackety crap. You go to London, the buses are quite nice, but you drive around here and it's you're on the fucking thing as it's shaking itself about because The thing is barely running. I've been on, so buses use hydraulic suspension. It's actually one of my favorite things about buses because it's nice and comfortable when it's in good condition. And it's also what gives them the sort of like really liquidy motion when they turn. I was on one bus and you could hear the piston head scraping across the piston wall because it doesn't have enough hydraulic fluid in there, and it's a nightmare. But the infrastructure problem is another big sign as to why dual power is so fucking important. Like, and dual power as well. Just a quick mention. I think a lot of people like think of it as this large, abstractly foreign thing, and it eventually is going to turn into large things. But dual power starts off on a very basic level, like at the lowest fucking elements of society. Like it has to. It literally can't start any other way. And it's trying to provide ways to look around these things. As I was talking about earlier, with the Panthers, 14 men, and what were they doing? They weren't just fixing signposts; they were filling potholes. They were maintaining infrastructure. That was one of the first things they were doing as a way to reach out to people to go, "Yo, look, here's a load of fucking people all dressed in the same uniform, and they're all doing shit. Like, yo." And then you want to approach folks, them like, I know if I saw a bunch of fucking people dressed up in berets and shit, fucking fixing the signposts and filling potholes, and I'd be like, well, these aren't the usual fucking workers that be down here, so I want to go and instigate as to why going with this. Like, what are these brethren doing?
Comrade Zen, I am glad that you finally fucking made it in.
I sure the fuck am happy about that too.
You made
Apologies.
it finally.
Yes, apologies everyone for my tardiness. I have been having some motherfucking technical issues from hell, but I finally got the damn thing to cooperate. So hi.
For the record, we did not do a test run, even though we haven't done a stream in over a year. It was a bad idea.
Maybe.
We've been self-critting on that for the last hour and a half as I've been very frustratingly trying
you
to
keep
get
seeing me
here.
looking down. I'm texting Zen angrily, trying to figure this shit out.
For we remain Zen.
What I did get to hear of the discussion, because I was watching on Facebook for a while, was beautiful. I see we are on dual power right now, talking about building up our own infrastructures. Rob said you were giving some comparisons and contrast of UK versus here. I didn't get to catch that part though because I had to kill the Facebook feed. But yeah, that's one of the most fundamental things behind what we're doing here is building up that dual power by building our serve the people programs, getting food and housing and healthcare, all these things in order, because this system likes to commodify them and withhold access from us to their infrastructures for it. So fuck them. We build our own. All power.
All
All power to the people.
All power.
That's right. We build our own.
I'm getting
Yeah,
like
right.
really tripped out that for some reason why your camera flips for the live stream compared to what it is on here, but everyone else's cameras is still the same way around.
It got me in. I'm not fucking with telling it to mirror my camera right now.
It's
I
weird
don't want it
because
to fuck anything up and boot me from the studio.
I know,
again.
but it's weird because it's not mirroring it for me directly, like on the call thing, but like on the Facebook stream, you're the only one who ends up mirrored. Like I'm looking at both screens, I'm just like, what?
Oh my God,
Understand,
you're
maybe that's
right.
normal.
Yo.
Oh goodness. Yep.
Oh yeah. It's okay.
Oh goodness.
Anyway, if you want to, I know that most of our viewers already know you, but if you want to like introduce yourself and maybe talk about what you've been up to in the last year we've been off the air.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, I did see a few familiar faces from the FWAM golden days back in the audience here too. But for anybody else who doesn't know, hi, I'm Zen. Well, Trisha also known as the Zen motherfucker. I am the White Panther Party Minister of Human Rights, and we have been busting ass doing party work for a while now, and so the podcast kind of had to take a back seat for a bit, but we're glad to be bringing it back, and in unity with the Right On Panther newsletter and the United Panther movement here, I think this will breathe some new life into the pod, and I'm geeked to be back. We've been looking forward to this, but yeah, we've been working on stuff like we've got a hell of an education program going on. So anybody here who would like to get down on some Panther education, message us. Let us know.
Yeah,
We'll get
Shanti
you.
is actually going to talk about the school for the next topic. So
All power. All right.
yeah,
I'll
you'll be
leave that.
hearing a lot more
Yes.
about that in
Yes.
about probably 10 minutes or so.
Yes.
Yes. We also have a book club going. We've started up some other committees and stuff too. So like, there's a lot of work we're doing as far as expansion. So if you are of revolutionary mind and you want to actually get involved with some hardcore people who are about the work, hit us up. Let us know. Bring you to the fold. There's my pitch.
Get your ass up in this shit,
Yes.
basically. Like, if you're revolutionary minded, where you at?
Right, come talk to us.
You gotta hit the deck.
And I mean,
you
like
know,
literally internationally, right? Kara, for example, is in the UK. We've brought that up several times in this stream, and she's still part of the UPM. We are trying to build anywhere where people are interested in revolution. I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah, no. I mean, is it surprising that someone of fucking Irish heritage has ended up involved with like a black organization? I think this is just like the way the rhythm runs around here. Like,
Yeah.
the rhythm of the night.
Speaking of a black organization, I was really hoping that Chairman Shaka was going to show up in here tonight, but he did not.
Let's hit him with the link again. Like, come on. We made it in the studio. You can see, comrade.
I mean,
I'm going to message him right now, actually.
Shaka is a brethren that knows how to drop the beat, so.
Amen.
The guy is.
I mean, Che
like,
and Rob Rich can both drop the beat pretty well too, though. Too.
Oh yeah, no, like Che's a fucking legend, and fucking Rob is an absolute G. Like,
Absolutely.
You know, both
Like,
drop the beat heavy.
I'm glad he's here.
But more the merrier, you know, eh?
Indeed. Excellent quote, Wade. I dig it. It's very true.
It's hot in here.
Yep. The whole basis of the UPM is programmatic unity. You know, we definitely do have ideological unity within the party itself, but in the UPM, that is a pan-leftist org of whether you are an anarchist or a communist or a socialist or whatever, so long as you agree to the 10-point platform and want to start getting involved in doing the work and helping your community and organizing within your community, the doors of the UPM are open to you.
Actually, on that note, let's pull up the 10-point platform and program.
All power.
Hell yeah.
I mean, obviously we know it, but that'll be a perfect segue into talking about the education platform, because we read both the New African Black Panther Party 10-point program and the White Panther Party 10-point program at the beginning of every class.
And the book clubs too.
Oh yeah, I forgot you guys started doing that on the book clubs.
Yeah, pull that up for all of our viewers.
I'm working on it. Why can I not find... There it is. I found it. Okay. I was starting to get mad.
Perfect.
I'm going to pull up the one from graduation week because it's in front of me.
Yeah, that'll be easier.
There we go. All right. Shanti, you want to read the 10-point platform?
Where is it?
Hold on, is it not showing up on the screen? Oh, I didn't click the fucking thing. Hold on. There we go.
Oh my god. Okay. Let me see. Okay. This is the 10-point program for the new African Black Panther Party. 1. We want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our Black community. 2. We want full employment for our people. 3. We want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our Black and oppressed communities. 4. We want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. 5. We want education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. We want education that teaches us our true history and our role in the present day society. 6. We want completely free healthcare for all Black and oppressed people. 7. We want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of Black people, other people of color, and all oppressed people inside the United States. 8. We want an immediate end to all wars of aggression. 9. We want freedom for all Black and poor oppressed people now held in U.S. federal, state, county, city, and military prisons and jails. We want trials by a jury of peers for all persons charged with so-called crimes under the laws of this country. And 10. We want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, peace, and people's community control of modern technology. All power.
All power. Comrade Zen, you want to read the White Panther Party 10-point platform and program?
Sure, I can do that once I get the puppies out of my face. Excuse me, Sarah Jane. Number 1, full support for the 10-point program of the new African Black Panther Party. Number 2, total support for the United Front against imperialism and the struggles of oppressed people everywhere. Number 3, to teach the suppressed history of white people's opposition to racial oppression and genocide in America. Number 4, to uphold proletarian internationalism and the unity of the multinational, multi-ethnic U.S. working class against national and capitalistic exploitation and oppression. Number 5, to re-educate white brothers and sisters who have been deluded by racist, white supremacist propaganda and ideology into opposing their own class interests. I don't know if there's a lag in the scroll. There we go. Number 6, to embrace the spirit of Panther love and serve the people in the capacity of revolutionary warriors. Number 7, to uphold the tradition of John Brown and others who have recognized that an injury to one is an injury to all, and that no one can be free while his brothers and sisters are in bondage. Number 8, to uphold revolutionary discipline and neither steal from nor inform on or in any other way oppress or exploit the people. Number 9, to be upright, honest, and fair in all dealings, to set a good example for youth and be respectful of elders, and in every way strive to be the people's pride. Number 10, to stand for peace and against imperialist war. Rob, can you scroll that up a little bit? Because your name tag is blocking part of the text.
Yeah, I know. I'll read point 10. To stand for peace and against imperialist war, to stand for justice and against injustice, and to stand for revolution and against counter-revolution.
All power.
Oh, that's it. I will say, on like the UPM's outreach and stuff like that, this country, this broken ass union, really does need Pantherism over here. Like, it needs that kind of level of movement. It needs to be readjusted for here, but it still is needed here. Um, and so that's something that I want to bring from the UPM over into this country.
Yeah, actually, we've been talking about, the colonized peoples of Europe. Actually, Shanti could go way deeper into detail on this than I could, but we've been talking a lot about the colonized peoples around the world, including Europe, right? A lot of people act like colonization didn't happen in Europe, but it happened in Europe first. And you're a virus
Yeah, like
in the UK, I rest my case. Celtic Panther Party. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
We have our own version of the N word, us Irish folk. Like, there's one that's specifically made for us. A lot of people don't know that. Negroid. To be oid is to be akin to or alike. And so, like, that's the thing people don't know about history. They were drawing us like fucking apes, just like they were doing with racist propaganda against African people, where we're all a family of apes, gorillas, like monkeys, kind of shit. Like, it, like we've had like such a common relationship with a lot of those kind of oppressions, whilst also having a lot of different shit going down. Like fuck, a lot of the shit that's going on in Palestine right now, you can just see like loads of mirroring to what happened in Ireland 150 years ago. The the Irish movement has a long, almost 900 years of like tormentuous struggle, just to even survive. And just like as in many times the white society has tried to do to the black nation and tried to destroy it, and sometimes had successes. I mean, there's still a lot of black people today that'll say they're not African, they're American. Well, that was happening in Ireland so many times. Like, we're fucking goddamn lucky to have fucking maintained our nationality and our culture and our fucking language. During the Great Famine, they were fucking the British were paying Irish families to stop teaching their kids Irish and teach their kids English. There's a famous quote from Churchill, and I think it was 1910, 1911. It might be a bit later than that. It was like, the most peculiar thing about the Irish is their refusal to speak English.
No, I think it's more fucked for the English to try to impose their language on everybody they touch.
You would have thought they'd have learned their lessons from the Normans, that it doesn't feel nice to have your fucking language eradicated, but I guess not. I guess it's like how the English were also cucked by the Romans and then decided that they would be a really good role model.
Oh, errors in judgment. Yeah. Goodness. But yeah. Shanti, are you still here? Did you have some thoughts on colonization? I know you do.
Yes.
Of
Going
course.
off Kara, a lot of people like to have this very sensationalized understanding of the history of colonialism in the modern context akin to the making of modern capitalism. And a lot of us still think that, I mean, because a lot of Irish people that came over here first were indentured servants, that, these so called white people were already given privileges, and, they did not face the same thing as us. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. You may think that otherwise until you actually look at the documents, because they deemed Irish servants and English servants and other European servants that came over to be on the same level as African people, as chattel enslaved indigenous Africans. And this black and white legality of political terms of whiteness and blackness really came from the Bacon's Rebellion. It really set the stone for everything regarding race in so-called America. And, um, you know, we have been so stripped of who we are as Africans. We have been stripped of our indigenous, non-normative ways of life. We've been stripped from our indigenous understanding of the world, of Mother Nature, of this earth that we birthed, that we came from. And we are riddled with respectability politics, with internalized racism, with colorism, with patriarchy, with sexism, um, texturism, shadeism, futurism, all of these manifestations of colonialism and capitalism where they have no choice but to intersect because they are all akin to the capitalist system that we we helped birth out of our enslavement, being kidnapped from our homeland and being brought to this place. Um, it is a lot of history in regards to African people um, and our resistance to that oppression. Like the Haitian Revolution, the Seminole Wars, the Gullah Wars, unified wars with other oppressed people, including Native people, which a lot of black folks think that our history started with the five civilized tribes and that Native people have always despised us with all their might. That is not true. That is not true. That is not true. We have stood in solidarity with Native people for a very, very long time. The Black Seminoles, enough said. The Gullah Geechee people, enough said. So it's also this decolonization of our own history, of our understanding of class struggle in history, and the solidarity we share with other downtrodden and oppressed people, which the ruling elite relies on to destroy in order to keep Native people away from Black people, to keep Black people away from Chicanos, and all everyone that is downtrodden under this system. So it's this. It crosses boundaries. It crosses boundaries. The solidarity, the camaraderie. It really like transcends boundaries, and it's really important for us, including Black and Third World people, to really understand the all-sidedness of this history and how much weight it holds in our current moment right now. Because the longer that we continue to allow ourselves to be miseducated by the mass media into thinking that trans people are the enemy, that the migrants coming are our enemy. The migrants aren't our enemy. You want to know why? Because we were in the exact same shoes over a century ago with the Great Migration, having to escape the Deep South, to escape Jim Crow, and the migrants coming up south from their indigenous homelands because of the U.S. empire, and they're making us forget about our own history. I mean, we were talking about the Great Migration 4 years ago, and now we just turn nihilistic amongst ourselves too. And that is what they rely on to keep us miseducated, to keep us psychologically enslaved, to keep us having a backwards consciousness and awareness of ourselves, to not fight back and to be at war with other people as if every other person who doesn't look like a so-called typical Black person is against us. And that is not true. It is not true. And we have a responsibility as colonized and oppressed people to fight against that dynamic, to fight against being so enslaved and living under colonialism's grasp, to live under the yoke of capitalist imperialism. It's really, really crucial for us to really keep that history intact and in mind, and actually learn it in its full all-sided glory, so that we can be able to decolonize ourselves and not see each other as the enemy.
All power. Che, do you want to say anything about colonization before we move to education? Oh,
Yeah,
Rob, I forgot Rob was here. Sorry.
I totally wholeheartedly support Shante when he talks about colonialism. Um, See, Puerto Ricans have always been colonized, man. We know as a people, we don't even know what freedom is. We've been colonized, man. We first were colonized by Spain, and then they turned around and we were colonized by the Americans. So we don't know what actually freedom is. So I know, colonialism, because I usually when I go to Puerto Rico, I see some of my people talking about, man, talking English, and they can't even talk Spanish in their own country. I mean, their own island, really. And this bothers me, because I be talking to them and I say, you're not an American. He said, yes, I'm an American, and they waving their American flag. I said, so that's colonialism, man. I have my share of that for years. And also it's not even a question of colonialism. It's also a question of the mental part, the mental piece, man. Where people get colonized, and start believing. I mean, a good example of that is the the Dominican Republic. Where the Dominicans over there, they have a fight in a war going on with Haitians simply because they're black. And that's also due to colonialism, man. How the colonizer have taught the Haitians as well as the Dominicans to hate each other. you know. And so that's what it comes down to, man. When you so decolonized, you start hating your own people. You really do.
All power. Rob, do you want to say something before we jump over to education?
Yeah, no, Jay kind of hit that point at the end, and something that I want to highlight is that it's like one point you could be on this end of the spectrum and then end up at the other. And what I mean by that is how um, Irish history, if we're speaking about like Irish in particular on the colonized aspect of it, have one been on one end been colonized, and then on the other end start becoming a colonizer within the U.S. and how something could turn into its opposite. And we've seen that over time and time again. And we could look at Zionism and how something of a people were oppressed, and it turned around and started oppressing the Palestinians. I could get but something that that we have to take into consideration in all these things is that the ruling class has a monopoly over the ideas and the culture and the education and these things, and that if we don't take part in re-educating the people, that we're doomed to keep repeating these same things over and over. And like Cara was saying about the history of the Irish being that similar to Palestinians, like how are we repeating the similar things that's happened now in just a different country against a different people? And it's this diluting reality and trying to deem people as less than, and this continuation of perpetuation of racial ideas is the superstructure. And I think a lot to talk about Marxism, a lot of people try to negate the superstructure like it's not something that reinforces the base, and it is. So we have to be participating in talking about these subjects. But real quick, one thing I wanted to show, and this was something that Cara was talking about. I'm trying to flip my screen.
What? I'm trying to flip my screen and then Poofy's gone.
What happened?
He'll be back. He'll be back. Don't worry. He'll be back.
Yeah, he always comes back.
Yeah,
While he is figuring that out,
Right.
though, I do want to point out something that Rob Hall said in the comments here. That the Celts were the first victims of the Anglo-Norman English. They practiced on them and used Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and Cornwall as testing grounds of what they would do in Turtle Island, Africa, Asia, and Australia and New Zealand.
Well,
It
yeah.
started here, whiteness that is. It started here with the Bacon Rebellion, but its roots go back to the Crusades in the Levant and the Spanish Castilian Reconquista and Inquisition. I thought that was an excellent elaboration. The White Christian Crusader Knight against the dark, more Muslim is really where the concept.
Even though what's interesting is that war against Arabs are like as white as we are when you actually think about it, and historically, culturally, in their relationship to Africa too. But that's something I want to comment on in a second, as well as someone else on what you said that was a part of what I've been waiting for. But Rob's back, so he should drop the beat, is what he was saying.
All right. Well, since I'm using my cell phone, they don't give me the feature of flipping my camera. So hold on. I just wanted to show propaganda from back in 1871 real quick. I'm gonna try to see if y'all can see this. Can you see this?
Yep.
So on the right was how they depicted an Irish woman compared to that of an Anglo-Saxon woman, and
Oh,
that
it's flipped
was
for us, so it'd be on the left for us. It was the Irish woman, and on the right, it was the Anglo-Saxon woman.
okay, right. So
Oh
it
no,
was
it's showing it the right way on the stream. You and Zen's camera does the same thing. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, that's all I wanted to show, and it's the same thing in which we see, in which controlling the propaganda. Then, but it's a history that people don't necessarily get taught, and that's because now, like in places like Chicago, the Irish people have become like the city councilors and the police departments and stuff like that, and became a part of the oppression, and they've lost that history. So that's why when I was in Chicago on Saturday, I made it my duty to walk around with Palestine flags and stuff like that with the Irish flags and try to bring up those discussions. And I think those are very important to see the connectedness that we have to oppress people across the world. But that's
All
all.
power.
Send me that book.
Getting
Send me
into
that book.
the Anglo-Norman stuff.
This book, real quick, is The History of White People by Nell Irvin Painter. She's a
Oh, I
black
got that
woman.
book.
You
Okay.
can look her up
Okay.
on YouTube. Man,
I'm
it's
looking
it's
that up.
really in depth. I've actually had this when I was in prison. I've got my ID number and stuff on there from when I was in
Hell
there.
yeah. Hell yeah. All power.
All power.
Oh yeah,
Fucking
all
A.
power.
On the
Shanti, if
Anglo-Norman
you
side.
have that on PDF, will you send it to me?
Yes, I sure will. And to all
Yeah,
of you.
I'd like that as well, please.
All right.
Same.
On the Anglo-Norman side of things, this is why the actual Brittonic natives of Scotland no longer exist anymore. They were wiped out. This is why Ireland spent most of the last 900 years as a serf country. The whole nation serfs. That's the actual thing people should be on. When we talk about Irish slavery, that's the Irish slavery. It's not chattel. He's like Irish Americans, or as we call them back over here and back home in Ireland, the fake Irish people. Because oh boy, aren't these people a bunch of joyous people? What should we do in honor of our Irish heritage? Let's become British people in a foreign land and basically behave like the Brits. So West Brit's another term for a lot of these types. This usually a term for the chauvinist back home in Ireland. It was a serf state for like the majority of its existence. Anyone who had any power was a planter or a fucking or a fucking an English settler. Like they weren't Irish. The Irish had no power over the land. They were all fucking enslaved. And then a lot of the indentured servants that were shipped across the world were also from the Irish serfs, taken into indentured servitude, because what they would do is they'd bring in, they'd take Irish serfs out of Ireland back into the UK to have them as house slaves. The term indentured servitude was actually a latter term that was used in the British invention of whiteness in the Caribbean, when they come up with whiteness as a concept to separate the house slave from the chattel slave, which is also gets into why whiteness is a little more complicated than skin color, because anyone thinking a bit hard enough will know that there was definitely black people in the Caribbean that were indentured servants, and you'll see black people in America talking about this, how the house slave took a very different reaction to slavery, because at this point we're talking about slavery after these British advancements in slavery had become standardized, and so there was that disparity. If a chattel slave says they're ill, they'll get taken out back and shot because they could make the rest of the flock ill. Whilst if a house slave is ill, our master's going to give him a bottle of whiskey and let him sleep in bed, and hopefully he gets better soon. And that's the kind of dynamic that exists. Is being a house slave nice? No, it's fucking horrible. But like, it's a world of luxury compared to them, especially with the indentured servants living in these like rich bourgeois households on a limited time where they'll eventually become free. And that's where you see a lot of the people that come from indentured servitude ended up coming out in the petty bourgeoisie rather than in the like chattel slaves, which ended up on the streets. Um, and that comes from that whiteness, that development of whiteness. Blackness actually has a longer standing history, and that goes all the way back to the Iberian Peninsula. Actually, the Iberian Caliphate actually came up with this concept, and they got in big trouble with the center of the Arab Empire in Palestine, because the Iberian Caliphate had decided that the Quran justified slavery, and decided that anyone considered heathenous or black should be considered fair game to be put in chains. And this wasn't just directed at people of dark skin. This was directed at anyone considered a heathen. But even with the Muslim interaction of it, it very quickly became harvesting Africans for slavery. And that was actually where the slave trade was born. It wasn't just that a bunch of Europeans hopped into Europe and then started the slave trade. Actually, it was the Arab or the Islamic Empire that started it. When the Arabs were ruling the Islamic Empire, before the days of the Turks, and it was and then the French and the Spanish. I think it was the Spanish first, then the French were to get their hands on it, and then the English were to come following after, because wherever the French are, the English's nose is like somewhere between two cheeks and the back of their fucking arse. But uh, and then the Atlantic slave trade is the European contribution, whilst the Arabs instead spread east, with the Turks eventually taking over that empire. And the Arab slave trade didn't stop, at least legally, until 1960. So like a lot of people think it's like African slavery, like, oh, it's something from like the 1800s, as if that's actually a long time ago. It's actually it actually ended a lot more recent than that, and all of these things run waves of interconnectability, and you can see that in places like India, which is like quite like America, massively profited off of chattel slavery, and that's where the delete people come from. The delete people are mostly descendants from African slaves, hence the darker color to their skin.
So I want to just elaborate on something that Rob Hall. This ties in with what you're talking about, right? The Portuguese got it from the Caliphate, right? The Portuguese are the ones that actually started the transatlantic slave trade. The first slaves to come to the New World. Actually, the first slave market in the New World was about 12 miles from my house in Kingston, Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The first slave market in the United States. And Rhode Island acts like it's a liberal paradise. Like the city of Newport wasn't fucking built on slavery. Like Providence Plantations wasn't removed from the state name in 2020.
That part.
They want to hide history.
Like the fact that a fucking slave trader is still on the name of a slave trader is still on the side of Brown University, which is an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you
he
also
was a
got like
slave trader after, mind you, after Rhode Island as a state banned the slave trade. That's how much it was not enforced. Sorry, you started bringing up the transatlantic slave trade, and I learned a few things about this state since I've lived here, and I just wanted to share.
no, you dropped the beat heavy. Like I like what you had to say there. I mean, it kind of gets into all the interconnectivity of this, of how like a lot of this shit wraps around, because there's Europe, and its colonization of each other. I mean, the Portuguese and the Spanish. What most of them are from the Visigoths. You like to know there were people in Iberia before the Germans decided to roll in. I mean, they were one of the groups in there. There was already Germans there, but there was also Celts, the Basque peoples, the oldest peoples of Europe. Um, the Galicians in North Portugal and in West Spain. I did the thing where I got confused with the skew. West Spain, are another fucking example of this sort of thing. The whole relationship of these places is that they ended up flexing their teeth towards Africa after they'd already bitten off much of what they could chew. France is the same. France is like a lot of people would think, oh, the French, a simple nation of people. There couldn't be some like diverse ethnic conundrum going on inside their borders. Well, Basque peoples again also live in parts of there. There's also Catalonians in certain parts of France, in diaspora, and then you also have the Celts in the north, the Bretons, in Brittany. So there's like all these complex conundrums in regards to these relationships, and a lot of it is tied in with Norman conquest. There's a reason why the French and the Spanish went from speaking German. The French actually have common ancestry with the Anglo-Saxons. There's a few other Germans, like the old Franks and stuff like that, that went into them, but they're also common ancestors with the Anglo-Saxons and, intriguingly, the Normans. And I mean, like the people the Normans descended from before they turned into the weird Latin people, because they actually like moved down into that region as well, intermingled with the Anglo-Saxons and the Franks, and then the next round of them came. Kind of similarly to how the Anglo-Uitlanders, Saxons, and Picts came over to England the first time around. They were as mercenaries for the Romans, and they turned against the Romans and sided with the Celts, and so they were granted like the ability to basically live in harmony with the Celtic peoples after they booted the Romans out. And then the second round of Anglo Saxons came. The second round of Anglos, Uitlands, Saxons, and all that, but as the Anglo Saxons, because they merged in Germany and Denmark and the Netherlands, that we would now call them. And actually, Dutch, the reason it sounds funny is because it's actually still quite similar to Old English. The reason it sounds, it's always the way to put it. European interrivalry. But
Dutch
the
doesn't sound like a real language.
what's it? What is it like? Keep me in ein clap papa or something like that, means like spank me, daddy. But the fucking but they all merged together and then like came in on the invasion. Yeah, the Normans they were Latinized Norwegians. They're actually also where all the mistakes in Latin come from. You know, people using like C's and stuff instead of K's. Well, not the letter K. I mean, like the pronunciation. Like people say it as like they say Caesar instead of Kaiser. So a lot of those mistakes end up coming from. In Latin, it would be Kaiser. CAE would be Kai in its pronunciation. A little bit of Normans are funny.
That's interesting. Rob Rich, I noticed that you turned your camera back on, so I assume.
Yeah, it's on, but I still got the lights off, and I'm about to put the little one to sleep, and he just lost one of his teeth, so now I gotta find some money that I don't have to put under the pillow. But something that I wanted to highlight too here is that the class systems that perpetuated, in slave society onward, and that how it, continued an idea that there is a people on the bottom while there's a people on the top that deserved something while everyone else deserved to perish and to be enslaved and things of that nature. And just like how, like I was talking about earlier, one time someone could be this and then they could turn into their opposites. And there's something that's pretty ironic is that during the Trans-Caucasus slave trade that the would be the Georgian people and people of that nature that were being enslaved by these other countries, that they were called, one of the terms that they were called was a derogatory term in Slavic, which was called charny, and which translated into black or uncivilized. And these people that they were calling that in the Georgian region and the Caucasus regions, um, fast forward to today, are considered white by American standards, and how back then it didn't, and how these things changed depending on, how the uh, the economy was going. Just like how, when you look at how the naturalization acts and different immigration laws have changed over the years, how once you couldn't come over here, and how the Japanese people were once deemed the big enemy, or the Italian people were deemed an enemy on immigration, and how there was always somebody that was beneath the elite class, if we use that terminology, and how it continues to perpetuate, and how now, even right now, how we're seeing an influx of Venezuelan people coming over here, and now how they're enemy number one, like in Chicago. Now they're deemed the people that are beneath everybody. They're the ones that everyone's got something against now, and this is where, having class solidarity is supposed to, diminish those ideas, where we see the root cause of all these issues. I wanted to say one more thing, and then I'm gonna turn my mic. I might not be able to come back on because I got the little one that's got to go to sleep soon. But something that was brought up that you could see from the slave society of before, or just, where they had people and the house slaves of what Cara was talking about earlier, and then now in the prison system of today, the Amendment 13 is the way to continue on slavery right now, and I fell victim to that type of mentality of have what I thought was voluntarily. I was coerced into working in the sweatshop industries in prison because it felt like a privilege. I had it better than everybody else in prison because I worked in the industry bakery, making anywhere between 30 cents to $1 an hour, sweating and really harsh conditions. I worked in there for 3 years, being completely exploited, and how the people in that environment, a great deal of them, would go to war for the guard, will go to war for the bourgeois class to protect those donuts that they got at the end of the night, those extra donuts. And to look back on these things in retrospect and the conditions that we were under, and how just meeting just those little needs, we were class traitors to the rest of the inmate, quote unquote, inmate population, and we were turned against each other with those things. And that same type of thing is where you see in the rest of society, where you have that petty bourgeois labor aristocrat type stratus, where they have that quote unquote middle class, that they think they're getting extra donuts, so they're going to protect the interests of the bourgeoisie by any means necessary. And now they're the gatekeepers of the bourgeoisie, and they're keeping the rest of us out, and they will go to war for that of the bourgeoisie. But so that's all. I just want to make those connections on those, and I'm gonna turn my mic off. But you know, just as there's revolutionary potential in there, there's also the backwardsness is there as well that we have to combat. All power.
If you don't mind, there's two quotes I could get that would be really, really good for this. Well, I think they're both from Lenin, but one just says from the Comintern. Okay.
I didn't realize my mic was muted. I forgot about that. Was there something you were going to read us, Tara?
Yeah. I found it now.
Oh,
So there's
beautiful.
two things. There's this one, and there's a second one that's a little longer. Obviously, out of such enormous super profits, since they are obtained over and above the profits which capitalists squeeze out of the workers of their quote unquote own country, it is possible to bribe the labor leaders and the upper stratum of the labor aristocracy. And that is just what the capitalists of the quote unquote advanced countries are doing. They are bribing them in 1,000 different ways, direct and indirect, overt and covert. This stratum of workers turned bourgeois, or the labor aristocracy, whom are quite Philistine in their mode of life, in the size of their earnings, and in their entire outlook, is the principal prop of the Second International, and in our days, the principal social, not military, prop of the bourgeoisie. For they are the real agents of the bourgeoisie and the working class movement, the labor lieutenants of the capitalist class, real vehicles of reformism and chauvinism. In the civil war between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, they inevitably and in no small numbers take to the side of the bourgeoisie, the vassales against the communards, Lenin. And then the second one is one that tends to make me cry, so bear with me a bit. But where's my pins? Because this really speaks at home. Like, while the capitalists are using the growing army of the unemployed to put pressure on the organized workers by lowering wages, the cowardly social democrats, the independents, and the official leaders of the trade unions distance themselves from the unemployed. They regard them as objects of state and trade union charity and categorize them politically as lumpen proletariat, the lumpen proletarian. The communists must understand clearly that in the present circumstances, the army of the unemployed represents a revolutionary factor of tremendous significance. They must assume the leadership of this army by exerting pressure on the unions through the unemployed. The communists can hasten the liberation of the trade unions from the influence of their scab leaders. By uniting the unemployed with the proletarian vanguard in the struggle for socialist revolution, the Communist Party can restrain the more revolutionary and impatient elements among the unemployed from engaging in individual acts of desperation. If conditions are favorable, the party can organize the mass of unemployed in support of the action of one or another section of the proletariat, and by extending the struggle beyond the limits of the original conflict, can make it the start of a major offensive. In short, the unemployed can be transformed from the reserve army of labor into an active army of the revolution. By actively defending this layer of the working class, by supporting the most oppressed section of the proletariat, the communist parties are not championing one layer of the workers at the expense of others, but are furthering the interests of the working class as a whole. This, the counter-revolutionary leaders have failed to do, preferring to advance the temporary interests of the labor aristocracy. The more unemployed or short-term workers there are, the more important it is that their interests become the interests of the working class as a whole, and the more important it is that they are not subordinated to the interests of the labor aristocracy. Those who promote the interests of the labor aristocracy, either counterposing or simply ignoring the interests of the unemployed, destroy the unity of the working classes and are pursuing a policy that has counter-revolutionary consequences. The Communist Party, as the representative of the interests of the working class as a whole, cannot merely recognize these common interests verbally and argue for them in its propaganda. It can only effectively represent these interests if it disregards the opposition of the labor aristocracy, and when opportunities arise, leads the most oppressed and downtrodden workers into action. The Third Congress of the Comintern.
Wow, you just complimented everything that we just talked about. Good quote.
All power.
And it really
Power.
gets into something about how like a lot of folk them operate. the revisionists, the reactionaries, the enemies, like they know that we down here in the lumpen proletariat are too revolutionary in a ways. Like that's an agreement that both the progressive and revolutionary front and the enemies of the revolution have. Is just how they work with it. Revisionists will either try and shy us off, or just like the fascists will use us as stormtroopers, whilst the revolutionaries, the communists, the true folk, them will come out for us. And there's people saying Lenin was anti-lumpen. I think they're getting Lenin confused with fucking what's it? What was his name? Who was the guy with the Seventh Congress and all that? Um, Fuck, how have I forgot his name? I'm usually bitching about the guy. Dimitrov. I think they're getting him confused with Dimitrov. Dimitrov was a lumpen hating little piece of shit. But like Lenin, nada. Like he talked heavily about organizing with prostitutes and everything. Like, he was in all support of supporting what at that point you would call them the so-called lumpen proletariat, because lumpen proletarian back then was actually an insult. The way Marx and Engels was using it was an insult. It was a way of like lumping the illegal bourgeois elements with the underclass elements of the proletariat and slapping them together in a really aggressive way, and also just ignoring the factor of the lumpen proletariat getting used to break strikes and stuff. Like, no shit, we're starving. Like, provide us some support maybe, and then we wouldn't be so willing to think you're all a bunch of dickheads, kind of shit. Like, because you're gonna tell us that we're all just state charity and we should go fuck ourselves. We will go fuck ourselves. And eventually, when someone gives us guns to go fuck you and money for us to survive in that process, we probably will end up doing that. So organize around the lumpen and it don't happen, rather than painting us as like some evil because of it. We're being manipulated. This like this is like saying, like, oh well, the working class people, they work at Amazon procurement centers and Amazon profits off of slavery, so those workers are all bastards and we should just go fucking throw them. No, like there's people trying to say that like homeless people are the new landlords, like because we get like tribute from people. It's like, no, we're begging for fucking food, we're begging for money. Like that's not being a landlord. Like I've never known a landlord to live on fucking concrete. Like I've known landlords to live inside concrete, but not on concrete. There's a big difference between that. Painting us is the big evil of everything, and it's a way of dislocating the proletariat movement, especially in the first world, where the lumpen proletariat is the most like grounded base going on there. We're always a bit on the higher end of revolutionary side. I don't think that's a uniquely first world thing. I think that's just the process of being the most oppressed. Because as I say, the thing is we're really too revolutionary, and we kind of need to be tamed. Like as that piece rightly said there, we need a communist party to sort of like sharpen. We're like a two-sided blade where one side is too sharp. And so we need to balance the sharpness of that blade so there isn't a blunt side to it that's being swung around. You've got the sharp side that's accurate and the blunt side that's inaccurate. And if one of these sides are inaccurate, you're kind of still going to flail. Like you might get some good hits somewhere, but eventually you're going to get yourself fucking trapped up and locked up in prison in a similar sort of act of desperation that our brethren George Jackson got himself into, where you're just trying to get some money to survive. You're robbing a store. You're just trying to fucking bally about to survive. And then you end up locked up in prison for fucking several years. Heck, you get radicalized and become a Marxist while you're in prison, and they'll frame you up for a murder. Obviously, Prince Fanon said, if you don't organize the lumpen proletarian, the enemy will employ them against you as mercenaries. Straight up. And we saw that happen in Germany. The KPD refused to organize the lumpen proletariat, being a bunch of fucking chauvinistic little assholes. And like, what happened to them? They got fucking punked because the SA was built out of lumpen proletarians. The Nazis promised them socialism and told them the way to get it was to go and fucking stomp out on people. That was also why the Nazis destroyed the SA afterwards, because they had made themselves something more radical than that they could even handle themselves. And so they had to destroy it because they strung the lumpen proletariat up on lies that the way to get socialism was massacre, slaughter. And so the SA willingly acted like Stormtruppen, to put it in German, and eventually ended up getting axed to be replaced by the much more petty bourgeois fucking SS, the Schutzstaffel.
Can I make a suggestion real quick before we change any subjects or anything, Rob and Zen?
Sure.
Can someone try to define the lumpenproletariat, the proletariat, the bourgeoisie and stuff like that for like the viewers that may not know the terms in which are being used?
Yeah, which is actually a good thing to point out, because since we've been using more like jargon, our viewer count has gone down.
So there's actually some dynamics to that, because you also have the lumpen aristocracy, lumpen petty bourgeoisie, and the lumpen bourgeoisie. Society reflects. So you have the bourgeois is like what people typically think of as the capitalists. It's also the political strata of that sector, where these are the ruling class, the people that rule us over, and they have a shadow form of that, which is like your illegal capitalists, your drug lords, your people like that. You have the petty bourgeoisie. They're like the traditional intellectuals, the small business owners, the cultural influencers, and people who actually manage the bourgeois cultural hegemonic institutions, the shit that helps keep them in power and keep them influencing our brains. And the lump and petty bourgeoisie are like your drug dealers, the big drug dealers, not your local runners, and like stuff like that. People are local heads of a mafia cell, people like that tend to more towards the lump and petty bourgeoisie. And then you've got like the labor aristocracy is a stratum of the proletariat, of the working class, that has been turned privileged and bourgeois in its relationship to society because of the extra pay that's given to them through super profits, the extra privilege, the extra accessibility to resources. They're turned into lieutenants or lieutenants, to say it incorrectly, of the working class. And then the lumpen labor aristocracy is a similar strata to this, but in the disenfranchised sector, and that's where you get a lot of your drug runners and people like that, people that are still making kind of that in this case technically tend to be making more scantedness to survive, but they're in a certain semblance of privilege in the undersector. And then you have the proletariat and the lumpen proletariat. The proletariat, or the enfranchised working class, your service workers, folk them like that are ballying it about on that minimum wage shit. It's not anyone who's just in a working class job. Your white collar, I earn loads of fucking bucks kind of dickhead is going to be labor aristocrat or even petty bourgeois in a lot of those cases. But like your proletariat, like full on of the strata proletariat, those no folk them are going to be like your corner shop workers and like the people at the supermarkets, shit like that. And you got the lumpen proletariat, which is like the unemployed, the fucking homeless, the imprisoned fucking people that of the working class, and folk them like that. I call it, to get rid of all the jargon of lumpen proletariat, this, that, and the other. I call it the disenfranchised working class as a way to sort of narrow it down. There's a problem with the Marx conception where it just sort of lumps all of those lumpen classes into one, as if like we're all the goddamn same thing, and like people don't stretch it out enough. I see some people stretch it out to lumpen bourgeois and lumpen proletariat, but if you could stick stuff in such a simple dichotomy, there wouldn't be a petty bourgeoisie or a labor aristocracy. So it gets real complicated. But there's that whole mirrored dynamic between like what you could say like is enfranchised society and disenfranchised society into those two sectors. Um, What's it? Yeah. Oh, and there's the difference between like capitalist realism for in the first world for those that are enfranchised. They exist in this pseudonomical existence where capitalism seems like it's this actually functional thing that works totally. Ignore all the countries it has to extract the living shit out of to make it work. And then in the lumpen side of society, even for the upper echelons of the lumpen society, you're not living in capitalist realism. Lumpen bourgeois motherfuckers are a lot more brutal than like your middle class average Joe is experiencing with like their relationship with the capitalists. these folk them don't know how good they got it in relation to capitalism compared to like the rest of the world until they get like the taste of it in the lumpen, and it's still nowhere near as bad as it is in the fucking third world. Oh my god. But the veil of capitalist realism is gone, and you see the brutality of capitalism right at the forefront.
For sure. So I do want to, for the sake of time here, we're already going on, the better part of 3 hours. I want to switch the. Hey, Zen came back right in time. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about what Zen and I have been doing. You may notice that, my name tag says Minister of Education. That happened before we stopped doing the streams, but that is what I've been focusing on for the last year since we've done our last show. Over the course of that year, I met Comrade Shanti here, who is the UPM's Secretary of Education, and we have essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to start what used to be known as the Hassan Shakur education course, right? We're trying to stretch that into a school. So I want to invite Shanti to, kind of talk about what the Hassan Shakur School of Revolutionary Intercommunalism is, and what we're trying to do with it.
Yes, so the Hassan Shakur School of Revolutionary Intercommunalism is something that we're working on, which is in tandem with the New African Black Panther Party and the United Panther Movement, which will be giving. Right now, we are focusing on courses pertaining to Pantherism, which is revolutionary intercommunalism. Um, Currently, we are working on the Pantherism 102 course, which will be on the UPM manual and the history of class struggle, among other things that we'll touch on in that course. The 3 Ps, the committee structure, how to do social investigation, all that good stuff. And we have, like I said, an historical aspect to this as well. So we'll also be discussing about the history of class struggle in Africa, the history of class struggle in Abya, which is the so-called Americas, with the indigenous nations here, including the Chicano people, the history of class struggle in Asia and Oceania and other oppressed places of the world, because it's really important for us to help the masses decolonize under the brunt of 532 years and counting of colonialism, of capitalism, of capitalist imperialism, of neocolonialism. And so this is a platform for the masses to actually learn what Pantherism is, what revolutionary intercommunal is, how to decolonize and apply the principles of decolonization into social investigation, into applying it to creating survival programs, creating a free food program, creating a harm reduction circle, creating a free clothes program, all that good stuff. So that is just a taste of what we're working on. We're eyeing the start of the course at around April 28th, which is our possible starting point for the course. And uh, I'm just really, really excited for what's to come. We've been making a lot of progress with the education committee since I'm Secretary of Education, as I mentioned earlier, and just excited where this takes us. All power.
All power. I'm going to invite Comrade Zen up to say a few words in just a second, but I want to elaborate a little bit on what you were just saying too. So yes, there is a historical aspect to the 102 course, but we are going to be stretching that out into its own thing as well, and that will be a series of 4 classes that will probably take us the better part of the next 2 years to put together.
Right.
But Comrade Zen also is putting together an ethics course. We're really trying to build this whole thing out into an outright school, right? When we say at the beginning of every class that the first duty of a revolutionary is to be educated, we mean it. But the point of the 102 class is kind of the other side of that, right? Like, you can have all the education in the world. As Fred Hampton said, you can have more degrees than a thermometer, right? But it doesn't matter if you don't get out into your computer, or get out into your computer. Get out of in front of your computer and out into the community to put these ideas and these concepts into practice. And now I'm going to turn it over to Comrade Zen to talk about the ethics course and add her perspective on this as well.
All power. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, we are working on building out curriculum for quite a few more classes now. As Rob said, we are working on building this into an entire university of revolutionary intercommunalism. And so, like, one of the things that I'd really like to bring to the table here is ethics and logic, because these are fundamentals to truly understand, like, why we do the work that we do and have the stances that we do about the masses being denied access to things that are commodified when they are human rights and necessary for survival. And so just maybe a brief intro there of, we are all born with the innate human right to not be harmed. All the other rights that we have stem from that right, whether it be the right to defend yourself against somebody who's trying to attack you, or your right to have the education needed to survive, your right to have access to food, because you didn't ask to be born and you exist in a meat suit that needs fuel put in it to keep it going. Therefore, human right to be denied that is to be harmed. This expands to all of the things which are supposed to be protected by law, but don't necessarily play out that way, especially in this system. But it's important to understand these things, because as we work towards revolution and building up our own infrastructure of having these resources for the people that aren't behind a paywall, we have to keep that in mind of our purpose in why we're doing that. We have to keep in mind that post-revolution, we are going to have to build laws that actually appropriately address protecting people's rights and certain things being guaranteed because they're necessary for survival. And so with that course, we want to lay down the groundwork for that. Another one that we are currently doing right now is the 103 course, the basics of Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. We are reading the college text on this in our book club on Friday evenings. If you guys would like to join us, that's at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You can message me or Secretary Shanti or Minister Rob for the link for that.
I'm usually at work
that's
on
open to
Friday
everybody.
nights. I would actually recommend messaging, Kara or Shanti or you, or not me.
I mean, that's
I'll be
totally
sweating
fair.
on a
I'm just
line in
saying
the
you do have
kitchen
the
at 7
links.
o'clock on Friday night.
Yeah,
This
on
is
Friday.
true.
I tend to be
I'm just saying
available
you
as
do
well.
have the links.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are about 6 readings into that one so far. So if you'd like to catch up on that, to be able to dive in there, we can also send you the free PDF for that book, so you can catch up to speed with where we're at. But that is also one of the things that is counting towards, your course credit for the Revolutionary Intercommunalism School. So there's a lot of wonderful things that we're building right now to expand our programs. And I'm racking my brain now trying to remember the other courses that we've discussed building out.
Well, I mean, let's
There's quite a few on the
just keep
table.
it simple with the ones that we've started actually putting the curriculum together for. Obviously, the 103, that's already a college textbook. We didn't put that together, but we're using it as a class. And then the 102,
Right.
which Shanti said we are currently working on. And then the next one will be the 201, which will be the history one that I mentioned earlier. And then
Yes.
So I think that's what you were missing, and then the logic and ethics
That
course.
was.
That's our 1-year plan. Is
Yes.
well, and of course the revisiting of the material in the 101. Actually, let's circle back to the 101 for a minute because we just had graduation yesterday. We did stream it on the For We Are Many channels. I don't know. I don't know how many of you saw it, but we had 9 really solid graduates, and I just wanted to take a minute to shout them out. And also, like us 3 as the instructors, we've learned a lot from them. We realized some of the shortcomings of the curriculum as it sits right now, and some things that we have to adjust. And that's why we don't do like your typical written or multiple choice exams at all, right? It's an oral thing, it's a conversation, right? So that way we can also learn where we need to be better. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So I don't know what just fell, but that did not sound good. Our valedictorian was Comrade William. We had 2 notable mentions, which was Panther Queen and Danny. And we also wanted to give special recognition to Street Captain James in Newark with the NABPP. And then there was Tracy, Marty, Joe, Bree, Cortez. And I think that's it, right? Am I missing anyone?
I think that was it. Yeah.
I
A
said
very
Joe, right?
powerful graduating class. Yes.
Okay, I did
Yeah.
say Joe. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget Joe.
Yeah. I think it's phenomenal that everybody was in the A and A plus range graduating this class, way to set the curve. Like this semester's graduating class really rocked it out, and I'm proud of them.
Yeah, and I think that we're bringing some really powerful potentially powerful comrades into the UPM. But I would recommend that everybody go back and watch that. There was some really good speaking, I guess. Chairman Shaka did the opening. Actually, funny story about Chairman Shaka and that opening statement. I was on the phone with him before graduation, and he's like, I got about a 5-minute speech. Do you think that's too long? And I said, no, Chairman, 5 minutes probably isn't long enough. So he ended up going on for like 45 minutes.
Powerfully at that.
Yeah, he was on point the whole time, but it was really funny. Like, hey, you think 5 minutes is long enough? And I'm like, no. And then he goes for 45. But yeah, he had some really powerful things to say. And then Chairman Jake said a few words, and
Elder John Creer.
Elder John Creer, yeah. Oh my God. And then we did a Q&A with him. That was fucking awesome. So go back and man, Elder John Bunchy, Elder Bunchy is wild.
Yes, he is. He made my day yesterday.
Yeah. You know, and that just shows us, right, that to a certain extent, age is just a number, right? Comrade Bunchy has more energy than a lot of the younger comrades do, at least in terms of speaking. I'm sure on the street's a different thing, but you know, he's still active. Just like Comrade Che in here is still active. You know, just like Comrade Tom was active literally up until a couple days before he died. You know, like this is a lifelong thing. This isn't just a hobby.
Right. It's dedication.
I would like to know. I would like to know something. Am I missing something or something like that? I think I'm missing a class or a few classes. I don't know.
You've been to a few of them, but I didn't see you at graduation yesterday, so I assume nobody sent you the link.
I was with my family this whole weekend, so I didn't have a chance to come out, you know, and talks. I mean, so from Friday on all the way up until today, as quiet as kept, some of my family were here. They're from Canada. So I had to dedicate myself to them. But I'm listening to all these graduations, and I said, "Damn, I didn't hear my name mentioned." You know, did I miss something?
I mean, if
You take my
if
time.
you want to take the course, comrade, I mean, you could probably pass it right now just from being in the book clubs for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I would like to take the course, man. I want to graduate.
I want to point out,
All
Avi
power.
said in the comments, "Here's to the late comrade Tom Watts," and that's another thing that you can go back on the For We Are Many page. About a month ago now, we broadcast the celebration of life that took place in Brooklyn, New York. There was a solid group of comrades there. Elder Carlito Rovira spoke. Former White Panther Party Chairman Ellis Roberts spoke. Obviously, Chairman Shaka spoke. Yeah,
And
but
Chairman
I mean,
K.
like what was awesome about that event is that, don't get me wrong, there was some sadness and there was some mourning, but it was not the vibe of a funeral. It was the vibe of a revolutionary event, right? The whole point was don't mourn, organize.
That's right.
All power. Yeah.
Well,
Tom
power.
wanted us to carry everything forward as hard as we can.
And for those that
And
don't know who Tom is, I can let Zen explain, but he wrote a lot of the party documents. Let's put it that way.
yeah, he was the party's primary theoretician from its foundation. He has brought so much wisdom and guidance to the table for us over the last few years, and it's been absolutely priceless and irreplaceable. Um, he's inspired me a lot, and I'm thankful to have had the last few years spending with him. All power. Sorry, getting a little
Oh,
choked up.
Natalie said, "Mr. Tom Watts, such an inspiration in his life and teaching." And Wade said, "For those who don't know Tom, or who don't know who Tom was, I'm sorry."
Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I only got to know Tom for a short while, and like, shit, I already got along with him fucking like stupidly well. We both had like very similar like life experiences. Just obviously, I'm 50 years off from him, but going from like a working class family into the lumpen proletariat and battling about the streets and coming out a revolutionary. And he actually said to another comrade that he was kind of like a bit concerned because we kind of have two similar of experiences that no one would ever get a chance to speak if we're in the call together, because we'll just keep recalling off each other's statements and responding, because like it's hitting that kind of level where like that spark where two experienced people are speaking in the room. It's not just relating through general empathy like all revolutionary show, because not everyone has an experience to share with someone, and people shouldn't try pulling some generic experience out of their ass to act relatable. But like it's that like I have that empathy on top as well. I have that fucking experience, and that builds that connected solidarity. Like, no, it was wonderful getting to meet him and speak with him. I wish I got involved with the UPM sooner. I wish I got into speak to Tom sooner. I kind of shied away from I shied away from the UPM at first, just because wasn't certain whether I was ready to dive in or not. And then like when I did start getting involved, I shied away from ever speaking to Tom. He seemed like someone who was a bit like out of my league. I'm just a nobody, like, and I shouldn't have acted like that, because he would have been such a wonderful comrade to really have gotten down to business on. And heck, like, it fucking tore me a new one, only knowing him for a short while when he died. I can only imagine what it's torn for those who have been around working with him in the modern White Panthers since, what was it, like 2004, and then like what the traditional White Panthers from, what was it, like, what was the 70s, wasn't it? The White Panthers formed early 70s.
I
I mean, if I
it
would have
was
known
like
that we were
68.
discussing Comrade Tom tonight, I would have made sure that Shaka was here because he knows a lot more. Or Comrade Ellis. Ellis knew him for years too. I mean, Zen and I have known him for probably about 4, but I only really started talking to him probably halfway through that. But that being said, though, you pointed out that all revolutionaries should have that sense of empathy, and I completely agree with that. But like with Tom, it was more than that. It was like whether he had been through your experiences or not, he could relate to your struggles. Like
That's what
I
I'm
don't know,
getting at, actually.
he was a rare guy. That's really all I can say about it.
That's proletarian empathy, like at its forefront. And like that's that strongest representation of empathy you'll ever find in these class dynamics. That's the reason why Mozart said he would never find a true friend in the aristocracy. Only would you find a true friend in the poor. They're the only people you could ever truly trust. Um, but like that's what I meant about that. Like having this, that's like empathy has to be intrinsic to us. Is that because if people just try to relate off experiences, well, like as I know, like good petty bourgeois comrades who could never relate to me being on the streets because they have no idea. I went camping once and it was really cold. Like, and we couldn't get the electric stove to start properly because the battery was dead. Like, yeah, okay. Like, we were camping homeless and we couldn't get the fire that was our only point of existence lit because the logs were wet. Like, these are not comparable experiences. You all have your car parked like just down the fucking thing where you go pack up and fuck off home and go get the shit you need. Or like, we don't have a home. Our home is the wilderness, or like whatever shelter we're fucking living at, or any stuff like that. It's like an example I use for it is like comparing a toothpick to getting stabbed 16 times. Like, oh, I pricked myself on a nail. That must be quite similar to you getting stabbed 16 times and left to bleed out on the sidewalk. And it's like, no, so like empathy has to be the core forefront of that because it's the only way that those people can relate and build up that ground basis. The second part of that as well gets into like revolutionary love, because empathy is a core center of revolutionary love. If you're an unempathetic person, you can't be a good communist. Like that's my position on it. There's all these weird white first worlders they'll be like this is not puff petty bourgeois. And they'll be like, you don't have to love the people to be a communist or whatever. And I'm like, what? How could you be even trusted to be anywhere near a revolutionary organization if you don't love the people and you don't have that strong love for the people? And in that love, once again, circles back to that empathy where you're putting the experiences of other comrades and of the workers at the forefront, because that's how we all keep all of our experiences at the forefront. We show ourselves the proper respect. We don't we don't put ourselves over other people, especially people with more oppressed struggles and experiences than us. And like we give ourselves all that highlighted voice and show each other all that strong empathy, and it empowers us all, and it gives us that like that selflessness that's needed for us to have what we all need as individuals, that community mindset. And like Marxists need to be like the evangelists of that kind of selflessness. We need to be too selfless compared to the normal person. We need to be like at a state of selflessness where we're willing to throw ourselves to the pit so long as society can change, and be at the forefront of organizing a mass struggle to push that change, and be the most willing in that mass struggle to die for that mass struggle. Not like a lot of people that tend to hide behind the masses and not actually integrate with the masses as a more radical martyr-esque mass. Like we have to take on that mindset. It's why like a point I made about Bush now is sort of like, he encapsulates the revolutionary energy that we should have as Marxists, but like applying it towards like practical means of struggle and not an individual act of martyrdom. And like that essence and that power is what makes that scene so inspirational. Is because it carries that character, that strength, that power, and the empathy again.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because as Che Guevara says, a true revolutionary is driven by great feelings of love for the people. Period. End of story.
That's
My
right.
favorite Che Guevara quote.
That's right.
I want to hear what Comrade Che has to say on. Yeah, I mean, it can be on. We haven't heard from him in a minute, so it can be on education, or on Comrade Tom, or on
Empathy and love for the
I'll speak on
people.
Comrade
Panther
Tom
Love.
because
Yeah, Panther.
I had the opportunity of talking to him a few times, Comrade Tom, and he was amazing. He was enlightening. You know, he's just sometimes I just talk to him and listen to what he had to say. You know, because it was very important. Everything he said that came out of his mouth was valuable. You know, so I told him who I was. I told him I was an Attica brother. He was amazed. He said, "Wow, yeah, me and you need to get together and talk." I said, "Yeah, we'll talk, brother. There's no problem with that." You know, and it was at that point in time that he passed away. So I really, it hurt me to see him go. The way he went, uh, because we could have went places verbally. We could have talked a lot because he had a lot. He could talk to me about his life, and I talked to him about mine. And it seems that we share commonalities in our backgrounds. You know, so he was an amazing man. I'll say a man, but he was an amazing brother, man. And I'm sorry that he left. But hey, like we all gonna leave at some point in life. What we have to do is make sure that when we leave something behind so that people could carry on what we left. You know, I mean, we talk about doing work for the people and loving the people. That's if we whatever we do for the people, it'll come back to us. It will definitely come back to us one way or the other. We just have to do the right work, and have the right impact so that people could later on say, "Wow, Chair did this, Chair did that, Chair did this, Chair did that." But we have to do it in order for that to happen. And that's what Tom was about. Tom was he did a lot, and again, in reference to me and him, I'm just sorry that he left, because I wanted to have more time with him. But hey, that's how life is.
Yeah,
It
for
is
sure.
indeed.
I have
It
a
makes me
couple things.
appreciate his dedication. Sorry,
Exactly.
just one note real quick. Like this speaks to the true dedication of a revolutionary, that Tom was in the hospital for congestive heart failure and showing up to the book clubs and the classes to teach, to share of his knowledge, share of his wisdom with the students. And that speaks volumes. We're never done with the work. We're never done learning. We're never done applying it.
Yeah.
All power.
Oh,
And I just
power.
want to all power. I just want to add a couple things from the comments. I have to scroll back up a little bit here. Rob Rich said, "I miss debating Elder Tom," and I know that most of the viewers never had a chance to witness that, but it was great. And I mean, this is like a total sign of respect. Rob Rich is the only motherfucker that I've ever seen that could like hold his own in a debate with Tom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, argumentative motherfucker. No.
I'm good at putting a challenge on for argumentativeness. I'll see you in the debate ring, Rob. We'll test this out.
Wade asked if we were compiling Tom's works into a book. I replied to that in the comments, and I'm going to say the same thing here. More than likely, it will end up being a collected works that would rival a set of encyclopedias. We're still trying to figure out how to organize it. It's very much still in the planning phases, but it's not going to be one book. It's going to be many.
Right.
But
Put
yes,
it this
we
way, Tom
are.
was very obviously neurodivergent, so the guy wrote a lot. It's unusual to find a work from Tom that is short. Actually,
That's very true.
in a moment, I have a piece from Tom that I always keep open on my Facebook. It's a tab that I barred myself. I'm not allowed to close. That I'd like to read after you've done saying what you're saying.
Whoa, what did I do? Where'd my mouse go?
Oh, you froze like, and your audio went what? What's going on?
There we go. That was weird. Everything froze for a second. And then Rob Rich also went on more saying Tom heavily dedicated himself to uplifting those in prison. Attica was a beacon for solidarity in prison.
All power. Yes, it
Yes,
was.
Tom absolutely was heavily dedicated to uplifting those in prison. Where do you think he met Shaka?
In prison.
Right.
Yeah.
Doing prison outreach. Yeah.
The best of our revolutionaries are forged in prison.
Yep.
Right. Well, yeah, and just to tie it back to the UPM, right? Like part of our strategy is to turn the razor wire plantations into schools of liberation. That's
All power.
that was pretty much Tom's like whole goal.
I mean,
Yeah.
we have literally the Che Nieves here who fucking they couldn't stop fucking radicalizing every fucking prison he went to a point they had to just give up trying to move him to different prisons because otherwise they'd fucking end the entire prison structure on a whim.
Facts. Your work in
back-
Attica is
you bring it back
inspiring,
my
Comrade.
past.
You
You
gotta
bring it
say
back my past. But I enjoy every moment of it, in spite of the fact that not only did I organize in different prisons, but I was also beat up, thrown in segregation. I was gassed. I was watered down. I even literally got sick. I was at a point of dying. And they said I was in a hospital shaking with 100 and some temperature. And they sent me a priest. I looked at this motherfucker with all due respect, of course. And I said, who you gonna heal? He said, I'm gonna heal you. I said, no, you know. You ain't gonna heal me. I don't need you. I'm not Catholic, first of all. I don't know why you even came here, you know. And he said, oh, I'm sorry. You're an atheist. I said, no, I'm not an atheist. I just don't believe in you. You know, I was playing hit, but I was sick. You know, others just recorded, man, and a lot of my brothers, man, that were with me, they're gone. You know, they could talk about this, man. But it was a beautiful time. You know, when we get a chance, I want to go. When we get a chance, not tonight, because I want to speak a little bit about Attica, you know, and give y'all some insights as to what really happened at Attica, because a lot of stuff is out in the books and stuff, but a lot of stuff hasn't even been put in the books.
I mean, a lot of those
Yeah,
books were
okay,
authored
so
by people that
Comrade, how
weren't there.
about we do that next week?
Yes,
Next week when?
Monday
Monday.
at 7 Eastern.
Monday? Sounds good.
Yes,
I'm
I
good. I'm
really.
good. I'm
Carter's all
good.
like,
Yeah, no,
I'm
like I
good.
already wanted to get Che on my own channel in this regards, and so like this is two birds, one stone for me because I'm like, I'm gonna be re-uploading
See,
this.
the only
'Cause,
thing
like,
about me is that a lot of stuff that I got it written down because I don't know. Sometimes I even forget what the fuck I'm at. I'm from the seven, man. I've been through hell, man, and a lot of the stuff that's happened to me now, it goes way back to Attica. See, when I was crawling in that mud, they were kicking me in my head, they were kicking me in my ribs, they were kicking me in my back, and then I had to run through a gauntlet after that. And the gauntlet was comprised of 50 people, 25 state troopers on this side, 25 guards on this side. And every time you run through with your hand like that, they hit you. You got to cover yourself so they don't hit you in your ear or in your face or stuff. But I fell a few times, and they said, "Get up, nigga! Get up, nigga!" So I get up and I keep on running. And then after that, when I ran that last mile, they put me in the cell and play Russian roulette with me all night. A guy would come and say, put your chin on the bar. And I put my chin on the bar because if I wouldn't have done that, they would have killed me. I know that. So I put my chin on the bar and he would cock this gun, say, psst, oh, it didn't work. I'll come back for you. Keep your chin on the bar. And I kept my chin on the bar all night. All night. We didn't get fed for 4 days. 4 days we wasn't fed. The doctor came 3 days later to see us. There was two other brothers in my cell that were shot up. They were injured and mourning from their injuries. Ain't nobody pay attention to that. So these are the stuff that I want to talk about next week.
no, yeah, big
All
discussion.
power.
yeah, I'm really excited for that. Actually, I've been meaning to like have a conversation with you, kind of about it. Like, I don't know that much about Attica, if we're honest, but I want to know more about it.
Yeah,
And you will, because Attica is all of us, and you part of it.
All power.
yeah.
Everything
All
that happens
power.
to us out here, is only a reflection of what's happened to us in Attica. Because
All
Attica
power.
has not stopped, man. The tortures and the beatings and the abuse and even the killings have not stopped at Attica. Attica has not changed at all.
Right.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah, I mean
important victory.
that's some really powerful shit. Like, I'm glad you're here to tell us about it. Let's start there.
It's
Indeed.
also like
Comrade Zen, do you want to say anything? I think we'll probably do Zen and then Shanti and then wrap it up. I mean, we're going on 3.5 hours now.
Yeah, 10:30.
I would like
I gotta heat up my baby's food.
right, indeed. I would like to let everybody who's watching know that if you would like to find out more about Attica before next week's show, when Shay will be giving a full presentation on that, to go, if you do have Showtime, go look up the documentary Attica that they have on there. You'll see Comrade Shay and many other Attica brothers in there speaking their piece about the things they experienced and went through during the Attica uprising. There's also another documentary on it on YouTube that is free to access. So by all means, these are great resources that are important to know of, our history, our elders' history, the things that they've been through, and how the state operates, and the things that we are yet to face, to fully anticipate the state doing, because we know already from learning those things, that's what they do, that's how they operate. And this stuff is vitally important. It is a blessing and a privilege to have elders like you at the table, Shay.
Thank you.
Your wisdom is priceless. Thank you. I love you, comrade, and I
Love you too.
respect you.
Yakoke.
I love all of y'all. That's why my name
That
is
said,
Che.
it is indeed, because you do operate purely on revolutionary love. And I appreciate that about you.
Okay.
Uh, that said, Secretary Shanti, you've got the floor.
I mean, I don't really got, I don't really got anything else to say other than I'm very, very glad that we're back in action with this podcast. I'm very, very grateful of being on here in the comeback. Um, just really, really grateful for all the comrades that came out tonight. Um, your love is definitely needed. So yeah, all power.
All power.
I did so with Attica. Attica's like a really important facet of like the lumpen proletarian struggle and us organizing and showing how truly revolutionary we really are. Um, uh, can I read this really short work from Tom Watts before we go? It's only like a Facebook post long.
Yeah.
Um,
Please. Thank you.
so it's
Yeah.
I always have this open on uh, my many tabs, and it's one of the tabs I'm not allowed to close. I get very annoyed if I do. The class base of the Panther Revolution is the proletariat, the lumpen proletariat, and the semi-proletariat by Tom.
Oh,
Sorry, from the 18th of the 5th, 2022. Americans, y'all do your dates weird. What exactly do these terms mean, and why do we need to be scientifically class conscious? Quote, the proletariat, from Latin proletarius, or producing offspring, is the social class of wage earners, those members of a society whose only possession of significant economic value is their labor power, their capacity to work. A member of
We just lost your audio, comrade.
Wait, what happened? Am I still in? Hello?
Yeah, you sound kind of muffled now. Did your mic get unplugged or something?
Is it better now?
I mean, I
a
can
little
hear
bit.
you, but it doesn't. It sounds like it's through your
Oh wait,
laptop,
someone
not through your mic.
is that better?
That yeah.
There we go.
There we
So
go.
much better.
Okay. Um, a member of such a class as a proletarian. Marxist philosophy considers the proletariat to be exploited under capitalism, forced to accept meager wages in return for operating the means of production, which belong to the class of business owners, the bourgeoisie, quote unquote, Wikipedia. In ancient Rome, the proletary were the class of Roman citizens between the slaves and the small property owners. They were free, but having no property, they had to compete with slaves to find work. As the name reflects, they were relied upon to produce offspring to fill the role of soldier or colonist in service of the empire. The modern proletariat is also dependent on selling their labor in exchange for a wage calculated to be enough to keep the worker coming back to work. Whether working in a giant mill or factory or in sales or in the service industry, a proletarian is a quote unquote wage slave. The lumpen proletariat, lumpen meaning broken, are the lowest level of the proletariat, comprising unskilled workers, vagrants, and criminals, and characterized by a lack of class identification and solidarity. Essentially, they are the unemployables whose relationship to the means of production is quote unquote broken. The semi-proletariat is a wage labor force that is not wholly dependent on the wage for economic subsistence. Typically, this occurs where wage workers retain access to land, working it themselves or via members of their family. Truckers that own their own rigs are an example. Basically, the Panther Revolution is a movement of the propertyless masses to abolish private property and the privilege and to reconstruct society based upon principles of equality and social justice for all. We believe in a planned cooperative economy that serves the will of the majority in creating a healthy, prosperous, and responsive society that treats human needs as human rights. When we say quote unquote all power to the people, we mean literally that the working class majority will dictate to the formerly exploiting classes and democratize the economic base of the society, replacing capitalism with socialism. Common ownership must be built through proletarian dictatorship. It must it must defeat the counter-revolutionary opposition of the bourgeoisie and reactionaries of all types. The world's economy is globalized capitalist imperialism. To replace this with socialism, we will need a global dictatorship of the proletariat to command the world economy. We must eradicate world poverty and hunger and provide everyone on the planet with decent housing and healthcare. Everyone must be guaranteed a job and access to higher education. Panthers identify this stage of social transformation as revolutionary intercommunalism, a stepping stone to world communism. As Comrade Lenin explained, quote, the dictatorship of the proletariat is a most determined and most ruthless war waged by the new class against a more powerful enemy, the bourgeoisie, whose resistance is increased tenfold by its ownership, by its overthrow, even if only in one country, and whose power lies not only in the strength of international capital, in the strength and durability of the international connections of the bourgeoisie, but also in the force of habit, in the strength of small production. For unfortunately, small production is still very, very widespread in the world, and small production engenders capitalism and the bourgeoisie continuously, daily, hourly, spontaneously, and on mass scale. For all those reasons, the dictatorship of the proletariat is essential, end quote. Such an important thing about small producers, them being not the heavenly people everyone tries to advertise them out as. In addition, to transforming the character of the social economic system, revolutionary intercommunalism will have the task of more justly distributing wealth and creating a more level standard of living for people, no matter where they reside. It must also resolve the contradiction between the need of society to consume natural resources and the need to conserve these resources for the future. We must systematically develop and apply quote unquote oh wait, it's the single quotation mark, sorry, the single the must apply green technology to ensure a long life to humanity on this planet and wherever else the future may take us. We must be responsible to the generations yet unborn. Pantherism is a strategy we apply today to transform the oppressed communities into base areas of cultural, social, and political revolution, and tomorrow to exercise all round dictatorship over the bourgeoisie and advance step by step towards global classless, stateless society. It is a strategy for getting from where we find ourselves today to where we want to be in the future. Those of us who are now at the bottom will stay at the bottom until the playing field is leveled and everyone enjoys equal opportunity and equal right to access to our common socialized labor. To all who dare to dream of a better world for all, dare to struggle, dare to win, all power to the people.
All power to the people. All right, so next week we will be discussing Attica with Comrade Che. Same time, same place, 7 Eastern. That's what, 3 Pacific? It'll also be available the next day on podcast platforms. And same with this. If you came in late or you left early, you can find this tomorrow on podcast platforms. That being said, I haven't heard this outro song in over a year, and I don't even remember how it goes, even though I wrote it.
Wrote it.
I wonder if Sterling even remembers the words.
I bet he does. He's brilliant. Also, before we go, I'm going to just pop up the website here for the Panther newsletter, www.rightonnews.com. You can find us there. That's another part of the updates of all the work we've been doing in the past year. A lot of it's gone into relaunching the Panther newsletter. So be sure to check that out. You'll meet more of our comrades from the newsletter here too, because they're obviously a core part of this podcast. So I just wanted to get that website into you guys' hands too, so you can see the other stuff we've been working on. All power.
All power. That brings
All
to
power.
mind that we should probably edit our social slide to include the right on stuff.
Absolutely.
But yeah, anyway, all power to the people. Thank you guys all for spending 3.5 hours with us tonight and bearing with our technical difficulties. But
yeah,
Natalie corrected me. It is not 7, or it is not 3 Pacific. It is 4 Pacific.
yes.
Yeah, my bad on that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
so we will see you guys at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, not 3, 4 Pacific next Monday. Until then, stay safe. All power to the people.
All power.
All power.
All power to the
And
people.
Panther love.
Okay. Love y'all, man.
Solidarity for you.
Love you too, comrade.
Oh, pfft.
Freedom on this campus. There's absolute freedom here. And we're all looking for freedom. Here's what I know.
Didn't matter when they sold the devil guns. Didn't matter when they played us right. Didn't matter when they stole your mother's son. Now everyone's out of their mind. That bullshit, these unemployment lines don't hold the candle to the corporate crimes. To the counter-revolution, what is all no peace of mind. Any element that matter is the one who's more better than your man kids here to joy. When you watch them, their reaction to every little inconvenient soul. Still a public, still a morphin, threat to the status quo.
I love this part.
Yes.
Worry about it. I had to lose my